In posterity, gonna start calling now. Gonna set it up. Hello?
Hey Connor, got my camera working this time.
Beautiful, I love it. Let me set this up a little bit. And let me go to corner camera, turn off my overlay, turn off that, set this up for Discord. All right, beautiful. I love it. And then I am going to reload my chat real quick. Docs, chat. Hopefully that reloads it. Okay, very cool. Good evening.
Is that your dog in the background?
Yeah, I do have a dog in the background. I don't know if he's doing anything appropriate, but he's there. All right, very cool. Okay, and then I have my sticky notes open, so you know, no rush or anything if you need a moment to organize or anything. But do you mind if I kind of intro and then we get into it?
Of course, go ahead.
Okay, awesome. So good evening, everyone. To those of you who are coming in, my name is Connor. We're going to be talking to Azurai and Eldrazi tonight about polyamory. Reason being, I think I've clung to my traditional guns of monogamy being the stable, predictable formula for human life, whereas it seems like a lot of people in the online space, but also in real life and also in major publications, are pushing for polyamory to be more tolerated, more considered, less stigmatized, et cetera, et cetera. So Azurai reached out to me maybe a few weeks, maybe a few months ago now, just to have a discussion about this and maybe a little bit of debate, a little tete-a-tete. Same thing with Eldrazi, and I was like, it, why don't we just do these back to back? That way we can knock out the content. So I obviously have my positions. I think I can substantiate them, but if you want to introduce yourself to the people at home, what you're all about, what you're into, and then maybe your opening statement on the subject.
Okie dokie. I'm Azurai. I'm big on gaming, history. Hopefully I'll be attending a university up in Sweden pretty soon.
Sweet.
I procrastinated on finishing the paperwork for that and got it done tonight. Deadline was the 15th.
Yeah.
Comes to polyamory, my position is that it should be treated as just another relationship type. Not everyone should be polyamorous. It takes a lot of work and not everyone's cut out for it. I don't think polyamory is better or worse than monogamy when it comes to just the relationship. I don't know if we have enough data on raising children polyamorous relationships yet to really know if there's any pros or cons to it compared to just regular old monogamous ones. I do know that extended family structures instead of nuclear family ones the kids tend to usually have always at least someone watching them, while with nuclear ones often they're either left at home alone or they're sent off to daycare.
Yeah, so mine is a position of anxiety when it comes to this topic, so I'll just try to articulate my perspective on it real quick. We're really talking about two things. We're talking about like moral and legal. Actually, we're talking about a half dozen things, but we'll try to put it all together. So yeah, so when it comes to moral, there's certain levels of actions that are deemed good and bad, and then there's obviously gradients in between. So I think that just because you conduct yourself in a polyamorous relationship, even if I don't agree with it, that doesn't mean that you're a horrible person. You can still do 10,000 million things that are good for it. And just because I have anxieties about raising kids or the stability of the relationship or the emotional health of people doesn't mean that out of the 5 people that I predict will have a failed relationship, there isn't going to be somebody that has a perfect relationship out of the 5 that I predicted. So that's where, you know, from a moral standpoint, I have my judgments, but this isn't the only thing that matters when it comes to human quality. Then when it comes to the legalistic frame for me is whether or not it seems up to me that if you had a perfect family, that like we wouldn't be recognizing the partners on equal status. But it's also worrisome to me that if we start recognizing this as like a valid model or formula, what are going to be all the externalities? And just as an example for one of the externalities that I'll probably bring up tonight is, for instance, in Saudi Arabia, they not a polyamorous subject, and they're obviously very theocratic and very conservative, but they do practice a polygamist frame. And the polygamist frame sees disproportionate wealth and power going to an upper echelon of men who then can date and court and marry multiple women. And then there's this whole underclass of men who have no access to sexual opportunity whatsoever. And it's actually kind of posited or conceptualized that maybe this is where some of the like underbelly, the violent underbelly of like jihadist violence comes from, is these men who feel like they have no opportunity for social position. And so that's I guess my fear is, in the game of monogamy versus polyamory, where do the incels land?
So when it comes to the Saudi Arabian example, I would contest that. I think there's a bit of a chicken and the egg situation going on here, where there's a whole lot of shit that's up about Saudi Arabia. We can both agree with that.
Probably, yeah.
I don't think that polygamy, which is different than just base polyamory, is the sole cause of it. I do think that there's a lot more, there's a lot of other things, like how Islam views women, the hyper patriarchal legal system that's slowly liberalizing, it seems, because of the tourist industry. The beauty of capitalism.
Yeah, that's the beautiful of cultural, capitalistic, international, like exporting McDonald's does have an impact on your culture. But then, okay, so I guess my anxiety is, even if we want to concede that there's like 10,000 different variables in the United States, or excuse me, not the United States, in Saudi Arabia, for why the the incels over there are not doing so good, and it could have to do with like stereotypes and dowries and patriarchal expectations of what a man is and all that kind of stuff. What about the incels here? Because the truth is that like when I video game this in my head, when I build it in my mind palace, when I see a society that encourages monogamy, what you have is powerful men, maybe not the most powerful. I think the most powerful will be able to do what they want, but you still have rich and powerful men who are pairing off with a woman, and the social expectation is that they're gonna be, hopefully, loyal to that woman, take care of the kids, they're going to maintain a family structure, they're going to educate those kids and all that kind of stuff. And as a result, they can't, I don't want to say predate, but almost predate on other women who are envious of that social status. And so they're paired off. Whereas if you have a polyamorous thing, then what you can say is you can have these men where I don't think we're going to be able to enforce whether or not like lying in relationships is going to be criminal. I don't think that's possible to enforce. So what happens when these men basically lie to other women to be like, oh yeah, baby, I got so much money, I'll take care of you, we'll set you up in a house, I'll get you some kids, I'll get you a Mercedes, this, that, the other. He takes her out on a few dates, he fucks her, and then he ditches her. Which, by the way, like, this is kind of already happening, like in Tinder, in Bumble, in all that kind of stuff, in Hinge.
Well, so with the, okay, I want to touch on the what are we going to do with the American incels first?
Yeah.
Because I think it's a bit more important. I think that the best way to tackle the incel problem is by giving young men a purpose again.
Yeah.
What we're doing now, working the 9 to 5, slaving away at McDonald's to give some fat his Big Mac that doesn't really taste that good anymore, and it's much smaller than it used to be. I think that one of the things we could do is by resetting the public works program we saw during the Great Depression. Because teaching people a trade, it's not one-to-one giving someone a purpose, but it gets you started on that road. Like whether it's in construction or doing HVAC, like I do, or anesthesiology. You gotta make, Maslow's hierarchy of
Of
needs.
course, it's one of my favorite concepts. Yeah.
Well, the thing about incels is that the biggest problem is that they don't really have much self-worth. And that's what really keeps them out of the dating scene, because we've all seen women who are like 10 out of 10s with guys that are like 3 out of 10 at best on a good day. And that's because that guy is like a lovable man. He's kind-hearted. He has a good job. He has a good set of morals to work with. I think that's entirely disconnected from the polyamory question in the American context, because when we talk about polyamory, it's not just going to be one guy with multiple women. We will also see polyandry, where it's one woman, multiple wives, or multiple women, one woman and multiple husbands, or multiple women and multiple men together.
Yeah.
An example of the polyandry one would be the Wild West, where there were barely any women, so women would marry multiple men. Yeah, you were going to say something?
Well, yeah. So kind of my little bit of a rebuttal there is like, I don't know if we can disconnect men developing themselves from sexuality and their sexual goals and their goals for posterity and legacy and all that kind of stuff from their desire for a sexual partner. And the reason why, like, I'm not trying to go totally evolutionary psychology on it. I kind of am. Like, I subscribe to evolutionary psychology when it's convenient to me, but I have to assume that part of the reason why men try to be kind and tactful and courteous and open the door and all that kind of stuff is because they want to be viewed as admirable from other men and attractive to whoever they're trying to attract, be it men or women. And then same thing with strength and achievement and money and all that kind of stuff. When I look at life, it seems like the two things that we talk about in popular media almost incessantly is sex and death. If you're watching a TV show, it's going to involve sex and death. And it's because sex is life and death is death. It's the two most powerful forces. So when we're talking about, and this is actually something that I wanted to cut down to the root to, do you, like, what do you view the purpose of human life as? Like, is it purpose and legacy and carrying on the legacy of your ancestors and passing it on to a new generation? Or is it about like acquiring all of the pleasures of life before you probably kick the bucket? Like what's the motivation for you personally?
I think it's a secret third option of doing better than the people who came before, so those who come after me can do better than I did.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be shackled by the chains of your forefathers, but but that doesn't mean you shouldn't respect what they did, because without them you couldn't overtake them. But that also doesn't mean we should completely devalue pursuing some sort of pleasure within our lives, because what's the purpose of living if we can't enjoy it? But
right.
We have to take time to work on things so that the future is a stable thing that will happen, and it'll be better than the past. But we also have to make sure that the present is one we actually want to live in.
Yeah. So I guess my question is, do you have more of a humanist, like a global humanist approach to legacy, where as long as humanity is doing okay and we're kind of like moving towards a better world for the next general generation, you're fine? Or do you have like a specific ambition towards children? And the reason why I'm asking this, I know you were saying that we don't have a lot of data on like child rearing as a part of like polyamorous relationships. So, you know, we can just speculate and go with our anecdotes. But I think the reason why I tend towards the model that I do is because I am super concerned with how my kids are going to end up. And as a result, like, that's the priority. So my pleasure and my experiences do have some priority, but I almost view like 15 to 25 as the time that I was exploring myself. And now that I'm in my 30s, so 25 to 36 now, this is more about the time of like building and achieving my ambitions while also being sure to leave a legacy to a next generation. And in my specific example, it's genetic. So I know you're saying it's like a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, but I guess I'm asking you, do you have that specific, like, it's got to be genetic, I got to have kids, I got to have kids with somebody? Is that of interest to you?
It is of interest. I do want to have a family, a particularly big family,
Yeah.
probably as big as I can actually support.
Okay.
Uh, I I want to have biological children, but I don't view genetics as the end all be all.
Uh-huh.
Because if I were to adopt, I'd still love those kids as if they were mine,
Right.
because they are mine. My wards, the people I'm trying to turn into a better person than I was. Um, I think that's. Sorry, did I answer your question?
No, you did. Basically, if I heard you correct, you're like, yeah, preferably I would like to have, biological children as much as possible, but also I do value mentoring kids in order to make sure that they're as good as they possibly can be as well. And by the way, like, I actually think that's something that's kind of missing from the masculine role model that we have today. We get uncomfortable when we have men and males kind of like being interested in the development of children, because we're so paranoid about abuse that we end up like missing out on opportunities for mentorship. And that's something that I would like to see changed, where it's like, no, just because you're interested in the development of kids who are not specifically your own does not mean that you're trying to diddle them or whatever. You actually could just be earnestly interested in developing the next generation. So yeah.
This reminds me of that. I know you saw it because you posted about it. The picture of the guy holding his baby to his chest that everyone was.
Oh, that was
gay.
Conor McGregor of all people. Yeah.
Like when I personally talk about like concepts like toxic masculinity, that's what I'm talking about. This positive masculinity, you can see that with how. Are you familiar with how Kratos, the god of war, developed from the original games to how he is in the current one now, where he's actually a loving father and he doesn't always do the right thing, but he's trying.
I'm not fully aware, so if you have a nuance of the topic, I would love to hear it. But I will admit that I kind of I've watched enough like trailers and gameplay thing to know that in the original Gods of War, you were throwing your blades around and killing gods and demons and all that kind of stuff, and then you were also having threesomes with goddesses and nymphets and all that kind of stuff. And then in the new one, obviously the meme is that he says boy more than he says any other word in the game, because he's taking his son out to hunt and to learn to be a warrior and a god and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, so if you have a specific example, I wouldn't mind hearing it.
So in the in the beginning of the first new God of War game before Ragnarok, he starts out with all the boy stuff. Boy, come here! Don't miss your shot, boy! I will throw you off the side of the cliff, boy. But he genuinely like develops over time through the cutscenes, becoming more of a mentorship. He's really closed off in the beginning because he is still like really fucked up from when he killed his original family, and he doesn't really know how to really connect with his son, and he wasn't really present in his son's life until his wife died.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what starts the whole journey. But if you were to play it, I would be willing to bet like $100 that you would see Kratos as he ends up as a aspirational figure.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm big into male mentorship, because I think that one of the things that I was missing. I have a father. but he was working a healthy chunk of the time, and so as a result, like that was kind of more our relationship, was he materially provided for the family, but during specific times of crisis or opportunities for mentorship or whatever, I didn't find like a really strong influence there. And so I did have other men in my life who I valued deeply. I can still remember some of their names. Monsieur Lefay was like a middle school teacher. You know, he basically was kind of like a no bullshit tough character. Mr. Hermade was a psychology and history teacher. He was phenomenal. Dr. Bauer was a chemistry teacher, and I fucking hated him. I thought he was an asshole. But he also kind of personified masculinity in that he was like gruff and able to communicate what needed to get done, but also didn't want to baby you through it and all that kind of stuff. And so I always saw him as like a man's man. And so those brief examples in my life, because let's face it, especially public education is a female dominated field. I feel like a lot of the things that are broken with our society is a lack of male leadership, is a lack of male mentorship. And unfortunately, I see people stepping into the gap like Andrew Tate. And that's, you know, that's scary to me, basically, is that I'm over here and I'm criticizing polyamory, which, let's bear in mind, that's like 3 or 4 progressives forming a polycule in some house that they're renting in Portland, Oregon. Meanwhile, Andrew Tate is encouraging all young men to basically cheat on their spouses and be manipulative, lying fucking douchebags. So like, you know, they're both, to me, they're both problems, but what's the bigger problem, right? So sorry, go ahead.
So on that issue, I do agree that we do need a male mentorships and role models, like right now, like as soon as possible. We need them to come back, because I think a big some evidence of us lacking it is that whenever we see a male or character, like a father figure in a show, he's always the this buffoon who is constantly fucking up, like a Homer Simpson or a Peter
Griffin. Yeah.
He's not present in his kid's life except to make things worse in the later seasons. While in the early seasons, Homer Simpson was kind of a good father. He looked out for his kids, but his job really prevented him from spending too much time with them.
Yeah. Well, and that's something that I kind of wanted to address with the chat, because they were like, oh, well, like, what are you guys even talking about? Like, you know, look at how monogamy has failed us. And I guess my kind of submission to you and to them would be like, when's the last time that you saw healthy monogamy even promoted, right? Like the last monogamous family that I can think of is the family from the Ozarks, and that's about like a upper middle class white family going into the cartel and then sucking every family member into like horribly vicious crime. And that's like the last example I can think of an intact family, besides Peter Griffin, who's an obese buffoon, Homer Simpson, who's an obese buffoon. Although I guess the guy from American Dad is fantastic. Stan's great.
No, he's passable. Like he gets a C. I think you're right when it comes to you are right when it comes to the lack of male role models. And the lack of positive monogamous examples in media.
Yeah.
Though I would say that just because we don't have many positive monogamous relationships in media at the moment doesn't mean that we shouldn't have positive polyamorous relationships. Like,
yeah,
it just need to have more positive examples of monogamy as well as the positive polyamory.
Yeah, and I'm sorry for laughing, but like I'm just looking at chat as well, and the examples they're coming up with are even more ridiculous. They're like Bob from Bob's Burgers, which he's like, he resents. Like, I love Bob from Bob's Burgers and I love Bob's Burgers, but he's like resentful from his of his family. His wife is a goof, which is redeeming. Like, it seems like they love each other, but it also seems like he's on the verge of a nervous breakdown at any moment. And then the other person was Mr. Incredible from The Incredibles. So, you know, which like, if I have to go into cartoons, I think that's kind of like demonstrating my point. And for me, not to get all like conspiratorial about it, I think that media oftentimes is a form of escapism for people. So the reason why we don't see like a stable monogamous family structure likely isn't a Jewish conspiracy to destroy the white race. It's probably just because if we saw a stable, happy, healthy family just going through the mundane things of life, that probably wouldn't be particularly entertaining. That I'm going to assume it's like 80% that.
Um, I kind of agree, but I also think it has to do with the prevalence of nihilism in today's culture. How because everyone is acting as if the nukes are going to drop tomorrow.
Hmm.
There's no future. Um, that there's nothing really to look forward to, and there's reasons to feel that way, but we don't really get shows like the original Star Trek and Star Trek: The Next Generation, where it was
Mm.
really hopeful. Uh, people, it gave us like a optimistic future to look forward to. All
Yeah.
we have is
Anti-heroes.
meaning, anti-heroes, nihilism, and just everything. Like 40K is a really good example of this.
Yeah, somebody said
So
the
you
Emperor as a positive male role model in chat, and I
no!
was like, not so much, not so much, but okay. Like I like him. I'm happy he wanted to conquer the galaxy in the name of humanity and ensure our survival as a species. But I probably wouldn't be going to him for fatherhood advice. Scully
um,
from Monster Inc. So, dude, all right, I'm sorry. Like, I'm not trying to sidetrack us at all, but like, do you kind of see what we're saying? Where it's like, because they keep bringing up like you're bringing up animated characters, you're bringing up characters from kids shows, you're bringing up absolutely flawed characters, you're bringing up characters that have sex and death and whatever, and then the 3 characters or 4 characters that we've come up with that are actually a part of like stable, relatively mundane families, they're buffoons. So if you're talking about Stan or Family Guy, Peter Griffin, if you're talking about Homer Simpson, they're all buffoons. But anyways, sorry, enough getting distracted on that.
so do we still want to go on with this part of the topic, or do you want to go on to whether or not polyamory is really a moral thing to allow, the legalism, or do you want to stick with what we're currently going with?
No, we can move if you feel like we're looping at this point. I think we kind of have. I just think that Chad is excited to bring up other media examples of father figures that they've had in their lives. But anyways, the so talking about like legalistically. So my only anxiety, although I think this would be a way to get around it. I am not against gay marriage in principle or morals or whatever. Like I think that if you want to commit to your partner for the rest of your life, if you want to share your assets, if you want to build a home together, if you want to build a life together, if you want to make sure that they have access to your you when you're in medical crisis, et cetera, okay, whatever, power to you. But I almost feel like we did a disservice because now we have religious people who are furious that like the word marriage, which they believe has religious connotation, is being used for like a domestic partnership that's long term. And so, although I think we lost this argument when we let Britney Spears get married and divorced in 72 hours, but but I think that if we had gone with like a civil union with like partnerships or whatever, then you could have almost like expanded this like legalistic framework to include multiple people. And you could have had it for like not necessarily married people. You could also had it for like brothers and sisters or extended family members or whatever who all wanted to be the heads of household in order to manage a household. So they made sure that there was like a legal way to transfer rights and responsibilities across the board. And I think that you could have done that with some kind of legalistic framework.
I
And then,
think
sorry, go
I
ahead.
have, I think I have a solution that will not only solve the question of whether or not polyamory should be legal or not, but also
Okay.
make a lot of rightoids happy at the same time.
Okay.
Government gets out of marriage completely. It only started
That's a Ben
getting into
Shapiro
marriage,
argument. Yeah.
only started getting into marriage because of making sure that miscegenation wasn't occurring. as far as I recall.
Uh-huh.
Um, we still keep civil unions for like tax benefits and whatnot to encourage people to still form families.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but if someone wants to get married to like 10 people, the government shouldn't have a say in that as long as they're not doing something else that's illegal.
Yeah.
We can if it turns out that polycools aren't a good environment for children, we can come back to that at that when we have the data for that. But and it would still be possible to keep uh, it separate, so people who don't want kids but are polyamorous can still be together without having the government on their ass. But if it turns out the polycools are not good for children, we can still protect children by having some regulation to say, hey, you have to be in a monogamous household for this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then that kind of gets into see, we're swimming in the cultural the cultural milieu of liberalism and libertarianism as kind of envisioned by the founding fathers but expanded to their words, so originally, like, when the Declaration of Independence was first written, and they were like, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal except for blacks and Chinamen and women and all that kind of stuff. Like, we kind of expanded that vision to include black folk and Chinese people and women,
And the Irish.
and the Amish. So we did
I said,
that. Wait, so and the Irish, yeah, of course. So we were, it depended on the day on whether or not Irish people were considered white. But the thing is, like, within the frame of liberalism, I can't think of like a legalistic mechanism through which to argue against these principles, because when you look at the American founding, what I see, obviously there's a whole bunch of different things written all over the place, but what I see as like a theoretical thread is that if the government can leave people alone and they won't kill the fuck out of each other, then government should leave people alone and allow them to pursue happiness to the best of their ability. That's what I see in the American founding and the liberal conception. But I do hear from conservatives, and I also believe myself a little bit, that human systems developed for a reason. And so when we're talking about monogamy or marriage or religion, there's probably a reason why these things came about, and they probably have a value that we might not immediately recognize. And so that's where I don't have so much of a legalistic argument as like a moral one, which is like, we should adopt the models that are most efficacious for human happiness.
well, if you're focusing on human happiness, wouldn't that be going towards the what you were fighting against with
Yeah, the hedonism.
pleasure and hedonism? Like, I thought
Yeah,
you would focus more
purpose.
on
Yeah.
basing these structures around continuation of culture or
No, I think you're right. I think you caught me in a not even like a subconscious, but like a Freudian, like a Freudian flub or whatever, where we're so, as Americans, we are so focused on materialism and happiness and contentment and material well-being and all that kind of stuff, that happiness is like a verb, or not a verb, it's like is it a noun? I forget all my fucking grammar, but it's a word that describes 10,000 different things to 10,000 different people. And so it could mean hedonism. It also could mean watching your grandkids run around on your country estate. And that kind of is, individuals are going to have different visions of that.
I think now personally, if I want to choose the word happiness, I would choose the word fulfillment,
Yeah.
because you can get into the masturbation pod that keeps you hooked up to a line that'll make sure you're fed and constantly high while the machine jacks you off, and you could be happy, but I doubt you could ever be fulfilled doing that, um, because there'd be no adventure in it, no discovery. You would just be in a closet somewhere until the day you die.
Yeah, so actually I appreciate your consideration for other things besides like, happiness or hedonism, which I think is kind of like the almost the default in American consumer culture. But I guess that's my question, or my question to you is, where does that come from for you? And like, what are your personal politics? Because, typically when people associate with like liberal or progressive or SOCDEM or commie or ANCOM or whatever, oftentimes it's going to be materialist, and oftentimes it's going to be they're not going to believe in an afterlife. They're either going to be secular or they're going to be anti-theist, and then also they're typically going to orient themselves around hedonism. So why do you value these things besides pleasure, I guess?
So, for one, I'm not an atheist. I am
Mhm.
Universalist Asatru.
Okay, based.
Do you know what that means?
No, but if it says universalist and then actually, you know what? Just explain it to me. That way I don't have to guess.
All right, so Asatru is the worship of the Norse pantheon,
Okay.
Odin, Freya, Thor, so on and so on. Universalist, there's a split between Norse pagans of you have folkish Norse pagans and universalist Norse pagans. The
Mhm.
folkish ones think you have to be white to worship the Norse gods. They're just Nazis. Like, I'm not being hyperbolic. They're literally just Nazis. And the universalists say, hey, our ancestors, some of them used to worship like Egyptian goddesses like Isis because her cult spread throughout most of Europe, and they didn't have to be Egyptian to worship Isis. And Odin isn't the sun father; he's the old father. All things, not some things. Kind of feels
Yeah.
weird that you care about the amount of melanin when he's the one that created humanity, according to our mythology.
Yeah, so I guess my question, because I studied Jordan Peterson from 2016 to 2018, and really I think the man needs to eat a vegetable and relax a little bit. But I felt like he had some deeper things to say. And when he actually brought up paganism in a way that I thought was really interesting, or polytheism in a way that I thought was interesting, where the gods are forces outside of ourselves that are eternal. So even if you don't want to believe them as like conscious intercessing beings where they interact with the material plane and cause different events to happen or whatever, you could still have Mars, the god of war, and when you're like angry or violent or whatever, you can say that you're possessed by Mars, and then when you're no longer angry, anger and wrath and war still exists outside of yourself as kind of like a universal immortal thing. So I guess my question to you on a religious basis, do you kind of like conceptualize the gods as these like eternal forces, or do you think that they're like personalities with like intercession ability, or is it more like mythology surrounding eternal forces?
All right, so something when it comes to my theology, the gods are imperfect beings. Uh, the Norse gods are not the only ones that exist; they're just the ones I find worthy to worship.
Mhm.
Um, I I think that so the mythology surrounding them is more like uh, it's closer to Shakespeare than scripture,
Yeah.
where we're teaching lessons using the gods as different roles, but it still says something about their true nature. If each individual word about it isn't literally true, there's still like a metaphorical truth to how they're portrayed, if that makes sense.
No, it is. I mean, that's I'm not a literalist, but I still defend religion and Christianity pretty often, and the reason why is because I probably approach religion from a certain way as well, where like if I'm talking to an atheist or an anti-theist, then I'm going to say that some Jews did some mushrooms 3,000 years ago. They thought some interesting moral philosophy. They wrote it down, and then if you follow that moral philosophy, then chances are your life is better. If I'm talking to a pure anti-theist or atheist, or somebody who's hostile to religion, if I'm talking to a religious person though, I do think that these observations are actually like true. So I have a friend named Layman. He's a perennialist. He told me that term, where he basically believes that like what is true 3,000 years ago and what remains to be true 1,000 years from now and 10,000 years from now and 100,000 years from now, that is what's true. So, you know, you can kind of conceptualize a creative and organizational force within the universe, and it doesn't have to be bound to any one religion, and each religion can have like revelatory power to humanity. And so I don't really take the myths of each religion specifically literally true, but I do try to look for the nugget of wisdom that's at its core of a story or a concept or a deity, and that's how I pursue spirituality. And then I hope that there's reincarnation or an afterlife or something, life after death or something like that. But I don't know, and that's the realm of the gods, anyways. I'm just a human being. I don't control that shit. So you know, hopefully my soul is lighter than a feather. That's what I'll be praying.
When it comes to things like afterlives, I hope there is one, but at the same time, I do feel that the concept of an afterlife is a bit toxic, because
Is it fucking scary too?
That, but well, so the Norse afterlife, I'm just gonna be teaching my ancestors how to play Mario Kart in Helheim. You know, I'll be good.
Right? Yeah, that sounds like a decent afterlife. Yeah.
But the reason I think it's a bit of a toxic concept is people, instead of trying to make things better now, they just say, "Oh, I don't have to worry about this because when I die, I'll be in this eternal paradise here or there,
Right.
and you know, screw the people who are left behind. Uh, I don't need to change shit for them." I think, regardless of if there is an afterlife, I think if the concept of one didn't exist, I think we would be more focused on making our lives better.
Yeah, I really hate the song Imagine by John Lennon. You know, I kind of joke about like if John Lennon was around, I would fucking shoot him. But that being said, there was I always bring this guy up. I watched a documentary about him. He was like a black metal guy from Norway. He kidnapped somebody and beat them up and then bled and made him drink his own blood. And then I think he got convicted of doing arson of a few churches and maybe a murder or two. I think it's like Varg or something like that. But anyways, if I get the name wrong or the person wrong, I'm sorry. But the documentary crew was following him around, and they're like, why, you know, you're in a Christian / atheist country. Why are you returning to paganism? Why do you hate Christianity so much? And he was like, well, I hate Christianity because it promises an afterlife to human beings. And so as a result, they deny the reality that's immediately in front of them and their ability to like manifest their divine spark in the here and now. Whereas I find with like paganism, you know, there's this entire encouragement to kind of like seize life by the horns and to manifest your spark of divinity now to show that you're worthy of a higher life or whatever. And I don't remember you know, if he was a literalist or not. But I did think that was interesting that if you looked at like Christian history and if you looked at like Christian peasants and you just saw them as this like cowed and beaten down people who were forced into a moral system that they didn't have any say in, and it denied them like pleasure and booze and sex and life, then maybe you would have a bitter resentment towards Christianity because it denied them pleasure in the now for an unknowable future. So I found that concept like really interesting, and I also think that like the thing that I took away from that was trying to manifest the divine spark that's inside you right now is an important part of human existence.
I'm enjoying this, but since we don't have much time, we should probably get back to
Sure. What's the neo-pagan or pagan take on polyamory or polygamy? And actually, if you'll indulge me another 10 seconds of ranting, I want to point out to chat that a lot of my resentment towards polygamy and polyamory came from promiscuity because I associated the concepts in my mind, but technically there is polyamory and polygamy that exists without promiscuity. So I think it's important to like nail down which variables you dislike the most.
So I do think we should separate like the promiscuity of a high schooler going to a ball and having sex with his girlfriend in the parking lot, for to like Tinder hookups, matching with hooking up with like 98 other people and not forming any relationship after that. I think these are like two different types of promiscuity here.
Right.
Uh, one's the Slaneshi type and one's the healthy type.
Yep.
Because you should see what you're actually into before you get married, because that seems to be a more healthy for your development as a human being. But you shouldn't be fucking like 2,000 people, not wearing condoms, not real, not trying to form any permanent relationships. I don't think you're really going to be fulfilled at the end of the day.
I'm gonna be a little mean to my friend, but how do you feel about Destiny and his recent breakup with Melina? If you've tracked that situation at all.
I think I feel like it's one of those things that really shouldn't be online. It should be done in private, and mm, we should only know about it from finding seeing that Melina is no longer talked about in Destiny chat. I think it's
Hmm.
way too toxic right now, and that most of the people who are so like focused on it should go get a life and find their own relationship.
All right, fair. The only reason why I was bringing it up is because I've heard some polyamorous people be critical, because I think that there is an element of hedonism to their relationship that they were open about, which was the fact that like she kind of wants a rock and roll traveling sexy lifestyle where she can hook up with people where she wants, and then Destiny has repeated, so I don't think I'm saying anything negative about him, but he's repeated that he doesn't think he can be in a closed monogamous relationship because he's just so interested in meeting new people, having sex, forming those short-term flirtations and relationships and all that kind of stuff. So he's not really interested in the long-term thing, which is kind of interesting.
Well, so when it comes to Destiny's relationship, there is a really big difference between an open relationship, which I think better describes what he had, to a polyamorous one. Because in regular polyamory, it's still possible to cheat on your partner. Usually, the set of people that's in the relationship is a closed set of multiple people. If you sleep outside of that, that's still cheating.
Hmm.
It's just expand. It's easier to think of it as more like expanded monogamy than just sleeping around.
Yeah, and that was the interesting thing. A lot of people were talking about, well, how can you even cheat in a polyamorous relationship, or how can you even cheat in a polygamous relationship? And the answer is obviously like not consulting your partner. Like that was like the main thing. And there were a few studies that were pointing to the fact that polyamorous people are more likely to engage in safe sex because they're more likely to engage in sex with somebody besides their partner. Whereas what happens with a lot of monogamous people, about a quarter allegedly from self-reporting, is that the three quarters or whatever, if their self-reporting is accurate, they have really low or no chances of sexually transmitted diseases or emotional fuck ups because they are staying faithful to their partner. But the one quarter that did stray, they were more likely to basically practice unsafe sex because they weren't really planning on it. They just kind of like, they got drunk, they were hanging out with friends, they hooked up with somebody they shouldn't have, and they took risks that they shouldn't have. And as a result, they actually found that the cheating population was more risky sexually than the polyamorous population, which I found
I,
interesting.
I think this actually shows what I would say is a really big benefit of legalizing polyamory, because I feel there's a lot of people who are monogamous by default, and they realize they're not fulfilled in a relationship, but they still love their partner, but they want to explore other people, but they're too guilty to really have a healthy conversation about it. So they go and start sleeping with other people and cheating on their monogamous partner with them. I think if polyamory was something that was just another type of relationship that was normal and legal, I think that well, people wouldn't feel the need to be monogamous if that wasn't for them, and we would have less actual monogamous people being cheated on and leading to broken families.
Yeah, and then that kind of brings us to the cherry on top, which for me, this is something that I'm going to get into Elderdrazi. Part of the reason why I was asking you about the small, or like the base motivations of why you do what you do, or why you consider what you consider, is because for me, my life is important to me, but it's probably not important to the planet. And it's probably not important to the species, and it's probably not important to the galaxy. But I want to take part in this chain of being of millions or billions of years of life form. I want to pass it on to another life form, and I want that chain of being to continue so we can push life to its extremities. Like, I legitimately think that conquering space is going to be a huge pain in the ass. I don't think it's going to be sexy at all. I think that like the Expanse, where they have like all these problems with gravity. I also read the book series. They have problems with like gravity and disease and like blood pressure and blood clotting and all this kind of stuff because of like the different gravity and spaceships and planets and all that kind of stuff. I think that's going to be like a real challenge, like a huge challenge. But I think that humanity is equal to the task. So that's kind of where like we can stay and live and die on this planet, hopefully. But it would be cool to try to conquer the stars. So why not continue that project, basically?
Now personally, I do love the idea of going out there and finding some sexy aliens to get with. I only fear that we'll go down the path like with SpaceX and Elon Musk, we'll have some really big, rich idiot who will fuck it up for the rest of us. He'll start a colony on Mars, and then they'll all starve to death or asphyxiate, and it'll ruin the public's excitement for the new global, the new interstellar gay space communist empire.
Listen, I'll be ecstatic if we become a system species, let alone like a inter-system species. And what I mean by that is, so this is actually something crazy that I read, was that Star Trek and Warhammer 40K both take part in one galaxy. So like there's like a few like Star Trek episodes that are outside the galaxy or in different planes of existence or something like that, but 95% of the plot happens within the Milky Way galaxy. And then same thing with Warhammer 40K, 95% of the action happens within the Milky Way. And so that's funny to me that we have these like mind-bendingly huge plots that cover tens of thousands of years, and our own expectations are that we'll never leave the galaxy. And so like, and bear in mind, there's like billions upon billions of galaxies. We're only talking about like one fraction of existence and life and all that kind of stuff. The reason why I bring this up though, is because these challenges are going to have to be taken with the same spirit of the pioneering of like the 19th century and the colonization of like the 15th century. And I'm not talking about like the rape and murder and all that kind of stuff and the forced conversions. I'm talking about like there's going to be fuck ups. There just are. Like a Pluto colony is going to depressurize and it's going to kill a few hundred or a few thousand people. There is going to be like a solar flare that fucks up the solar panels on another colony and a few thousand people are going to die. That's just going to be the way it is.
That's why I think we can't let the private sector be the one to lead the charge. We have to make sure it's well regulated, that Mars won't just become a tax haven, basically.
Yeah.
Already bad enough as it is with one planet. We don't need it with Mars.
Yeah, but I think it would be hilarious if that's like all it was. Like it was like the Ireland of space where they're just like, no, we're headquartered on Mars. You can't tax us. So, even though 90% of our commerce is on Earth, all our financial basing is in Mars. So fuck off. Like that would be, I would love to see the war that was caused by that.
I do have an important question when it comes to your views on polyamory.
Sure.
All right, so currently, right now, as far as I know, it is illegal. Well, maybe illegal is too strong of a word, but it's not legal to raise kids in a polyamorous household in basically all of the United States. Your kids will it will be used as an excuse to take your kids away, even if there's nothing else that to justify it that wouldn't have been looked over for a monogamous family. Um, and
Do I support that?
Do you think that? Yeah.
No. No, like there was this like popular series. It was about like Utah Mormons where they had like 4 wives or something like that, and they all lived in different houses, and they had like a secret way for the husband to get around in order to not draw attention from the neighbors and all that kind of shit. I don't think those people should be living in fear. I do think that, like, you know, I don't like Mormonism from its like theistic or deistic perspective, but that's no reason for like the kids to lose a father, or the wives to lose a provider, or the wives to lose each other or whatever, if they believe what they believe. Now, that being said, I do think the polyamorous and polygamous setup is, the more people you involve in a system, the more complex it gets. It's taken me 12 years to get to know my wife on a level that at this point I do think I know her better than herself. And then I think that she knows me better than myself, but she'll still try to do things that she knows will piss me off. And I'm like, why did you even do that? We've been together 10 years. You know I'm not changing this thing about my personality. Fucking deal with it. So when it takes 10 years to know one person that well, when you add another person, that level of complexity adds to the potential for abuse and miscommunication and all that kind of stuff. So I would only want the state to intercede if there was actual documentable abuse. But I would warn anybody considering that, like, hey, have you even just thought about how complex and fucked up this is going to be?
I agree that we do need a way to separate the regular polycules that are okay from the weird hyper patriarchal Mormon cultists that where the father's like sexually abusing all of his kids and family members. We still need some way to get the kids out of that horrible scenario situation in the best interest. I just think that regular polyamorous people that are not those horrible abusive people should still get be able to raise their kids normally. Um,
Yeah. And then basically we are hitting time. So do you want to kind of give us an outro, kind of any final thoughts that you have on the subject, where people can find you if you want them to find you, and also anything that you care about, YouTube channels, charities, whatever?
so you can find me at Azurai, Azhurai, basically on any platform, uh, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. It'll be under the same name. Um, I guess my closing thoughts is that, well, my closing thoughts on the subject is that I feel that a lot of the, I guess, distrust towards polyamory comes from a non, I guess the best word to use is a non-rationalized place of disgust. Like they haven't really thought about why it makes them uncomfortable, and they're just acting off of basic instincts. I think that once we get past that, we can learn the truth of, hey, these are the pros and these are the cons of polyamory. This is what you need to look out for to prevent abuse, and this is how you need to prepare if you're interested in this type of relationship. Because, like I said earlier, not everyone should be polyamorous. It takes a very specific type of person to be happy in a polyamorous relationship, and I think that's where I would end it.
Excellent. Well, it was very fun. I was kind of anxious about the topic because I want to be I want to maintain like my chill and nice rep, but I am against it. But there's, like you said, there's not a lot of studies on it. So it's kind of up in the air, and it is a lot of vibes and it is a lot of feelings, but the consequences are serious. Whether how it affects kids, how it affects families, how it affects people in those relationships, what's the norms for society. So even though it's all vibes, it still has real world impact. So I want to thank you for coming on. Thank you for talking with us. I'm going to go do the same conversation with Elder Drazi, and then I'll probably hang out with chat for a bit. So I appreciate you.
Okay. Till next time, Connor.
All right. Till next time. Have a great one. All right, ladies and germs. So because I talked to Elder Drazi and Elder Drazi and Azariah about the same shit, we were just gonna do these conversations back to back. And actually, let me just take a second before we move into anything else, just to talk to y'all real quick. So number one, thank you for hanging out with me. We got 5 people on Twitch. We got around 40 people, 45 people on YouTube, depending on how sexy or how nerdy we're getting. So I do appreciate the people who are putting up with us tonight for political stuff. For the Warhammer people who are here, I'm at a crossroads, and maybe you can help me figure it out. So Warhammer 40K doesn't have enough content for me to live stream all the time. There just isn't. Like, we would listen to audiobooks together or something, or we would watch somebody else's battle reports, which is a possibility, but I'm just saying there's not enough like animations for me to break down to live stream it, right? So that's a problem with like live streaming 40K all the time. And I've been participating for the past few years in a community called Twitch Poll. And Twitch Poll is just Twitch politics, which really is online politics, because Twitch kind of pushed us out. They banned a lot of the bigger creators. So most of the Twitch Poll creators are on Kick or Rumble or YouTube or whatever. But Twitch Poll still kind of describes, this general vibe of online nerds who like to debate politics. So the reason why I bring that up is because I used to go live 3 to 4 times a week and debate, but I don't have enough. I don't really have like enough time or energy to dedicate the same way that the professional creators in the space do so. So what I would say is my game plan is either to keep CounterPoints 40K as the main live stream channel and do all my live streams there. So I would do battle reports. I would do a Warhammer weekly news roundup when we go full time. I would do workout streams. I would do Twitch political debate and conversation streams. I would do all of that on the main channel. And then I would break up the content and put it on the sub channels for like VOD purposes and also for metrics purposes. That's one of the ideas. The other ideas is to dedicate the 40K channel exclusively to 40K, because that's what 95% of the people who watch me are here for, and then try to develop more live stream content for the 40K audience. That way I can kind of cater to that niche and then push everything else to its separate channels. So that's kind of I'm at a crossroads, but I'm not in a rush to make the decision. So if you want to give me feedback in comments or feedback in messages or Twitter DMs or something like that, I would be open to it. But I haven't made a firm decision one way or the other yet. Niz says, I know about Kick. That's where Dev is a fascist on Disco Elysium. True. Love it when Dev is a fascist. So many lore Warhammers on YouTube. True. That's the other thing too. It's like we could do lore videos. And I've actually thought about using Midjourney in order to do like lore art. We could also do breakdowns of the audiobooks, because Black Library has like Audible. So I could be literally here painting models and 3D designing terrain on one screen while this is when we go full time, by the way, which should happen in the next year just based off of size. But I would be painting or 3D modeling something. That way you guys could see the creative process. Maybe we'd be listening to like a Black Library audiobook together. And then maybe I would be like pausing and interjecting lore breakdowns or something like that. So we could do that, but I don't know how much community interest there is going to be in that. So yeah, so we'll see. We'll see. He does a good job though. Why are you trying to derail him? Connor, another option is D&D that seems to attract other audiences. I know, but also with niches, people come back for the same content over and over again. Twitch and YouTube political content debate is like 1% of my metrics. 99% of my stuff is Warhammer, just from views. I'd personally prefer segregating the types of content to channels, but that's me. Thank you, Niz. Maybe do hardcore debates. Yeah, I mean, if we were shooting at each other with bolters and las guns, absolutely. Don't do political debates. Why too many channels on the grift? Don't do political debates. Why too many channels on the grift? You would have to explain that. And it's because I have multiple interests. So that's the thing. I like the political stuff. Thank you, Who Cared. I appreciate you. I'm not a D&D fan, but yeah. You think Henry's Warhammer series is going to be brutal enough? I am worried. Leaving forever, chat. Sorry to see you go, some human. You think Henry Warhammer series is going to be brutal enough? Yeah, probably. I think that like TV series or whatever, they've been able to do whatever violence that they want to do for. I think that they're going to be able to do whatever they want. For instance, the trailer for Fallout looks really good. But what I'm worried about is I heard rumors that it's the Horus Heresy, which could be Henry Cavill biting off more than he can chew. So I wanted him to do something simple like the Eisenhorn series. But I'm worried that he's going to try to do the Horus Heresy and it's going to be so expensive and so much CGI and such a huge story that I don't know if that can be properly adapted for TV with the amount of time and energy it would take. And I don't know if the battles can catch the scale necessary to communicate it to the screen. I wish them well in that ambition, but I would literally only bring the Horus Heresy to any screen if Peter Jackson was like a director or a high up consultant who had say in the logistics of creating the battles and the CGI and the scale and all that kind of stuff. And by the way, the Hobbit series kind of wasn't as good as the Lord of the Rings. So yeah. Exactly, Niz. Keep it small scale. That way it's high quality so we can get more people in there. I'm biased, I guess. This was the only political debate I watched. Yeah, well, if you go down into the description, there's going to be Counterfire down in the description. There's a shitload of debates down there. So I'm more of a centrist, but, you know, I talk to leftoids and rightoids and everybody all the time. So let's find Elder Drowsy. Elder Drowsy. You ready? Question mark. And then they might have tagged me. Let me go check the community. Where is it? Creator, Hippy Dippy, Destiny, Elder Drowsy. Oh, they're already here. Okay, cool. Excellent.
Hello.
Hey, good evening. Let me get my camera up and let me get you guys on my screen for my chat. How are you all doing?
Good. Doing pretty good.
Okay, excellent. Well, I did a little warm up with a different creator, Azurai, and I'm here for y'all.
All right. Just before we start, since I'm moderating, I think that you both are very disciplined. You don't actually I don't think you're like either strictly need a moderator, but the benefit of having a moderator, I think, in a 1v1 is that you can let go more. So that's what I'm thinking about going into this. You don't need the type of structure that you need in an 8-person panel. So you can feel free to just like let go, and I hope you can trust me to moderate and stop you from going too far and getting involved.
Okay,
that sounds good to me.
All right. Do you guys want to do opening statements or something? Or do you have any like requests for moderation either two?
Nah, just openers, general, closers.
All right. Start with it. Yeah. Go ahead.
Would you like to go first? Or do you want me to go first?
Actually, if you could go first, just so I can respond, because I did just talk about this for an hour, so I don't want to repeat myself and bore my chat.
Okay. No problem. So, one of the things that I think is lost on a lot of people when they talk about monogamy and polyamory is that there is no real reason to consider monogamy like a default state. I think it's fine that lots of people are monogamous, but basically from the time that you're born, every single story that you'll ever hear, whether it be a book, movie, TV show, almost every story that we can think of has monogamy in it, and it's completely devoid of any other like relationship structure. So I think that there's an insanely strong and persuasive indoctrination that happens, and it's just sort of not questioned. And again, I don't think there's anything at all wrong with people being monogamous, but I do think that we hold it to such a we hold it to just be like true and correct to a degree that makes absolutely no sense. This seems to be one of those cases where the tradition exists simply because it exists. And I prefer to see a world where any number of different kinds of relationship structures are equally respected. And like not I don't want to see anybody's relationship structures get persecuted simply because they're not following the norm. And I'd be really interested to see if there's any real argument other than religious that would contradict this. Oh, also, Connor, I put in to this group chat document that has like an amalgamation of every study done in the last 30 years about polyamory. So if I cite data, it'll be from that. I hope you got a chance to see it. If not, at least I made a good faith to get it to you.
Sure. I'll take it on good faith. And then, sorry, is that okay for me to start?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so I, relatively speaking, agree that monogamy isn't the default state. I actually think that humanity is a promiscuous species, similar to other people, but I also think that there's a bunch of consequences to promiscuity that have only been like recently accounted for through technology, such as contraceptives and condoms and all that kind of stuff. And for a majority of history, promiscuity was potentially fatal or injurious. Like you could get STIs that would affect you for the rest of your life. You could have pregnancies that were terrible. Women often died in childbirth. It's still relatively common for women to get injured or killed by childbirth. So these are still serious consequences. Also, in a less rich world, passing on wealth to your offspring is wildly important because the wealth that you pass on to your offspring is going to determine whether or not they live or die in a more desperate world. Now, again, technology has done us a solid by making our world so rich that death from like malnutrition or starvation or hereditary wealth is not as big of a concern. But I don't think that these concerns came out of nowhere. I think that monogamy was an evolutionary psychology tool that was primarily promoted by Jewish people, basically in order to solidify society, to guarantee partnership. I also think that there's some benefits from pairing off, where rich men don't have the ability to attract and seduce dozens of women to them. Meanwhile, dozens of men are left to their own devices just to wallow and die. Now, every story is monogamous and devoid of every other relationship structure, and we don't have equal respect for these structures. I appreciate that we probably grew up in the 80s and 90s where every sitcom and rom-com kind of ended up in a monogamous partnership, and also that all the families that we saw were monogamous. But I was talking to, Azarai before this conversation, and we were trying to come up with like a stable, healthy, happy family from the past 20 years. And we couldn't come up with one. It was literally like Peter Griffin, the obese alcoholic who hates his fucking kids. It was Homer Simpson, the obese alcoholic who hates his kids. It was the characters from the Ozarks who, while being a relatively monogamous, that starts with cheating, but a stable family unit, they get wrapped up into the drug cartel and they start murdering people and seducing people. It's fucking crazy. So anyway, so I don't think that the social cultural waters are the same that you were describing as they were 30 years ago. I already addressed that. Equally respected. I don't know. Okay. I would go with respected. I don't know about equally respected. And the reason why is because I think that relationships and relationship structures are a vehicle for children. Not necessarily, of course. There's all sorts of different people who don't desire children for whatever reason, but I do think that that's one of the primary modes of relationship structures, and I don't want to see these persecuted. I do believe in like the liberal rule of law, where like we can have cultural pressure on the ways that we want to live our lives, but ultimately, if you're not murdering, killing people, abusing people, whatever, I don't think the state should intervene on you. yeah, and then non-religious argument, I went more with evolutionary psychology over religious, but I can also do religious as well. So yeah, I think I've addressed a majority of your points. I'll yield there.
Okay. Before I really get into it, I want to say I caught the tail end of your stream because I just wanted to see what you're up to, and I was like, oh, he is talking about it. I just wanted to comment on the one thing that I caught for your audience about what was the person's name that you were talking to?
Azurai.
Azurai suggested that it's said it's not illegal, but like it'll be legally used against you if you're in a polyamorous relationship. There's children involved. I believe. Don't quote me on the exact state. I think it was Washington State passed a law. If not, it's another state that essentially says that if there's another partner in the relationship who has like lives with the child and all that, that they're also granted parental rights. They're still like if the family unit treats them as a parent, they will also be seen as a parent. And also, there was a woman that my wife and I had been dating for a long time and lived with us. When she had to go to court for her kid, it was tried to be used against her. And the judge said, I understand what you're saying and how you feel. Unfortunately, this is a court of law and none of these things matter here. So it was immediately dismissed and shut down as soon as it was brought up. So I just wanted to clarify that point, just in case anybody who might be in that position, I don't want them to be afraid of any legal things.
Sure.
So I took some notes here. As far as wealth being passed off on to offspring, well, one of the really cool things about being polyamorous, especially if you end up living with more than one partner, you get to save more money. So if you're worried about having generational wealth, it does help a lot. Even if somebody isn't working, like the person that I just mentioned, when she lived here, she stayed here half the time because she was also fighting a court battle. So she had to be like 2 hours away staying with her parents for the other time. But the amount of time we had to, like, I have my own business, the amount of time I could focus on that because she insisted on making all the meals. She's like, I can't work right now. I'm cooking for you guys all the time. And she'd even put us meals in the freezer for the weeks that she'd be gone. She loved it. We didn't ask. It was essentially forced upon us. So there's a lot of ways in like adding wealth to the overall relationship structure that I think if your concern is passing on wealth to the offspring, it certainly helps. I don't see how it could hinder it. The whole idea of having dozens of women being attracted to one rich guy, let's be honest, I don't care what society says or what the rules are. Rich guys are going to be macking on as many chicks as they possibly can, as much as they can get away with it. But if they're polyamorous, these women don't have to only be with the rich guy. They can also that only works in a monogamous structure where if they all think that's my boyfriend and they're not going anywhere else, now they're off the dating market. However, if they're polyamorous women, they can be banging the rich guy and maybe less incels out there too. So I think that the polyamorous structure actually helps the situation that you're talking about. And I hear that argument all the time. And I feel like people are talking about this like they're stuck with this one person. It sort of defeats the argument itself. And the thing that you said about you couldn't come up with good families, people in my chat pointed out a couple. There's like Roseanne, there's Everyone Loves Raymond. That's not what I'm really concerned about. The fact that these families are portrayed as bad, I think even helps it further because nobody's questioning the family unit as the cause of these bad things. Nobody's saying like, oh, it's because they're monogamous. This happening. The monogamy is taken so for granted that we never even look at the structure and wonder, is this a part of these continuously bad things that are happening in the stories? That's how like subversive the idea of monogamy is. It's like money. Nobody questions it. People can bitch about it all the time. They can have problems with it, but they never question the structure itself. It's just taken as a given, right? It's the same thing with like how we think about monogamy. It's very rarely does anybody ever question the actual system.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering how to contend with what you're saying without appealing to anecdote, but I'll just try to start peeling.
You can, but as long as we can tie it into something else.
Yeah,
I'll probably do the same with my own situations, but then tie it back to something else.
Sure. And so I'll address the first concept that kind of struck me. So you having a live-in girlfriend for a period of time and all that kind of stuff. Do you and your partner have kids?
So yeah, I have a kid, and my wife is my kid's stepmom. I recently, like 3 years ago, I got my wife. I'm the full-time parent now. The mom is essentially out of the picture now.
Okay, and then okay, so if this becomes too personal because I'm prying at you
No, no, no,
specifically,
no, no, no.
we can
Please.
expand it.
I would be insulted if you held back out of that concern because I'm very open with it. Please.
Okay. So all right. When I hear mother didn't want to hang out with the kids or didn't stay with the kid or whatever, typically I'm thinking substance is yes,
Nope.
no, maybe so.
I fought tooth and nail against her, and essentially it was to the point where I'm going to take you to court. Do you want to go to court? If not, give me my fucking kid. I was tired of going back and forth with her. Like, I used to drive 2.5 hours each time to get my kid. My kid wasn't happy there. My kid wasn't thriving in school. None of that. Everybody knows my kid wants to be with me. We both know that our kid would be better if they stayed with me. And then sure enough, grades are up. Everything's up. She's just, I don't know. Some people are just better off taking care of what they can take care of. And unfortunately, that wasn't where my kid was already at for my kid's sake. I'm more than happy to have my kid living with me where they're able to get everything they need to succeed.
Okay. So if I'm hearing you correct, it wasn't like a substance abuse issue. It's literally just she didn't she just didn't have that in that nature to enable somebody
some
else
of it had to do
thrive.
with her partner. The guy that she's like been seeing and not seeing, who's the father of her other kid, he kind of really fucking sucks. And I think that influence on her makes her less apt of a parent. And then I think also him being there makes it harder for the kids. And unfortunately, I can only do what I can do for my kid. The other kid, kind of on their own, so to speak. It's all I can do.
Okay. And then just prying a little bit, you and your partner, do you guys plan on having kids?
I got a vasectomy.
So that I'm assuming that's a no.
Yeah.
You're not going to reverse that one. Then
adoption's not out of the question later on, but yeah, I'm all done.
Okay. Well, hold on. So do you have the one? Do you have any other kids?
No, it's just my kid. And my kid's 15, so.
Okay. And does your partner have any kids with anybody else or want any kids with anybody else?
No, she sometimes wants a baby and all that, but then when she gets down to like breaking down what it means to actually having a baby and then like having the baby, it's kind of like, okay, yeah, maybe not right now.
Okay, got it. And then just digging in a little bit again. The live-in girlfriend who stayed temporarily, what was her situation kid-wise and relationship-wise with the court situation?
Okay, so this is actually I might have to give a little bit of background. So this woman was really close friends with my wife for a long time. Basically, they were in love like forever ago, but I got there first. I stole her away and we moved away. Literally, they were each other's like first love. And they almost certainly would have dated, but I beat her to the punch and we moved away. So that didn't happen. This woman got with a guy who is, you were in the military, right?
Yes.
You know how some guys get out and they're chill for like a couple of years and then they lose their fucking minds?
Yes.
He's one of these guys. And she's like, I don't want to, she's like, I don't want to be here anymore. So we helped her get out of there. And yeah, through that, well, I guess they've been talking for a long time, but we helped her get out of there because she didn't want to be there. She literally couldn't escape there whatsoever. And so we were just helping her get out of there, and just through getting to know her and all that, I think like they might have ended up dating on their own without me just fine. But I think that maybe I left work and went up north to help her when I heard some of the stuff that had happened. Oh no, I'm sorry. She was here just hanging out, and he came and like kidnapped her kid basically. If there's no order in the state of Michigan, the mother has default physical custody. He came up and just snatched the kid and left. So as soon as I got out of work, I drove 2.5 hours up north to like take care of all this stuff. And I think that sort of was the catalyst for her and I getting closer. And then it just sort of formed naturally that like they already had a thing, and that sort of like brought us closer together. And she was just staying with her parents, and she was down here hanging out. And then as we got closer, we ended up moving in with her, or she ended up moving in with us. But then, you know, back and forth because of fighting with the courts, he wasn't willing to give like an inch on anything. He was super furious. And I mean, from his perspective, I get it.
Yeah. So already, you know, I'm not trying to be
This is the wildest situation of me having like a polyamorous relationship of all time. By the way, this is not the typical average story. It's a wild one. I'll give you that for sure.
Well, and that's kind of what I was going to poke at without trying to be judgmental or rude to anyone involved. So when I hear like, I was with somebody, but they weren't emotionally nurturing for my daughter. As a result, I took possession of my daughter. I've been with my partner for a long time. We love each other, but she loved this other woman before we got together. We don't plan on having kids together. I'm already snipped. She thinks about it, but she doesn't really want to do it. And then she had this relationship with this other person who also already had a kid, but they only got together because, these two females weren't together. And then she had a kid with a douchebag, and the douchebag was there. And then I had to help support him or support her. And we had a cool little thing going while she was getting through all her trials and tribulations. I would never try to get a state agent to come into the Drazi household and point a gun at you and say, you are not allowed to live this way. But I do think that what you went through was a tad bit more dramatic than a successful monogamous relationship, not a unsuccessful monogamous relationship, because obviously it's like 50-50. There's tons of unsuccessful monogamous relationships. There's tons of broken families. There's tons of single mothers. There's tons of, children who aren't getting what they need. I'm not trying to say that. But I think that if I compare you to the ideal, there's a little bit less drama with the ideal in particular.
Sure. I can understand. Like I said, that is whoops. I accidentally clicked something. That is a super wild story. It's not typical whatsoever. This only happened because, like I said, of how long they've had my wife and her have had like.
Well, were you guys really strong connection before this?
Oh yeah. We were together for about 5 years before she approached me with the question. Now, I don't generally suggest it to everybody. This is how it should go, but I was just of the mind that I really loved. She was my fiance at the time. Yeah, she's my fiance at the time, and I didn't want to bring up the subject because there's a fear of like her maybe feeling like, hey, I'm saying like, hey, you're not enough for me. But I was polyamorous before I met her. It's just something that I never brought up because I wasn't sure. I don't know if you're familiar with like the thumb of Michigan or like the far north parts of Michigan. It's a lot like the South. And that's where she was born and raised. She didn't have the same kind of ideas and opinions as everybody, but there's still a lot of influence. So I didn't want to like bring a more, I just didn't want her to feel like I was saying there's something wrong with her or our relationship. I didn't want to put that on her. I still wasn't nearly as informed about polyamory as I am now. So I wouldn't have had the words to properly express myself either. And she brought it up to me one day because my wife, as much as she loves me and we have a good, healthy relationship, good, healthy sex life and all that, she's pretty fucking gay, dude. She really, really likes women. The one day she was like, I think I like men more than women. I was like, lady, the magnitudes you have slept with women more. Like, okay, like it's not even close. And then I broke it down for her. She's like, holy shit, you're right. Like she's so gay, she don't even know how gay she is sometimes. It's crazy.
That happens. I literally think, it's a meme, obviously. It's like, every woman's bi. You just have to figure out if it's bipolar, bisexual, or both. Like, I agree with that fully. Like, I think, like, most women are a little bi. So, So the reason, not just trying to use examples, but I have to assume that there's a little bit of chaos. And if you guys continue, let's say that you just had, hold up. Let me just steel man before I pull in the variables. So I know that polyamory does not mean promiscuity. Okay. That's actually something correct. That is something that somebody corrected of me, where I just associated promiscuity and polyamory together because you're involving multiple partners and you're involving like sexual appetites and all that kind of stuff. So I just associated the two together. But once I had that disconnected, I do understand that you could technically have that live-in girlfriend stay with you forever and you guys would just be together forever. And I wouldn't view that as promiscuous because you set the barriers of your relationship and you continued within those barriers. Whereas promiscuous, I would view as always looking for something new, right?
So you're thinking of like an open marriage kind of deal, which is significantly different.
Yeah. And so that's where, though, I would say that these, if you had a rotation, it really is promiscuity that I guess I'm criticizing right now. But if you had a rotation of like live-in girlfriends who were coming and going and all that kind of stuff, and you've described to me like these emotional experiences that you've had with these women that were deep and probably fulfilling, but also chaotic and maybe a little bit challenging at times. That's the kind of thing that I would say, for children in particular, that would be my concern, to be exposed to that level of chaos that young.
Yeah. So one of the things that I think I talked to Quibbles with Coffee. He tried talking about how it's going to be like inherently damaging to children, and I'm like, hey, look, I think most of the time a parent, I'd at least like to think most of the time when a parent's dating in general, they're going to take a good look at the person they're dating before they bring them around their kids. And my kid has met several of the people that I or my wife and I have dated together. And they've always been super positive influences on my kid. It's always been like really even surprising to me, just like how much I think my kid got out of it and all that. It seems like everybody that I've gotten close to outside of my wife has been like, I don't know, either they had a kid or they're like just super like they must have had like a lot of children in their life because they're super good at approaching and interacting with kids. That's always been really cool. So it's easy for that. But I can see how.
Yeah, the concern would be an emotional. The concern would be an emotional attachment that then ends.
Yeah, the criticism would be no different than a single parent who is bringing people they're dating around their kids as well, though. Correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I even think too that even if there is the unfortunate event where there's an emotional attachment that ends up getting severed, at least in a situation like mine, where I have a primary partner who lives with me, my kid still has two parents to fall back on. We're both there to give them the extra attention and support that they'll need if something like that does happen. Instead of being a single parent where you're going to now have to juggle that along with all your other responsibilities of being a parent and being a living human being that has bills and responsibilities outside of being a parent.
Yeah,
so
just
there is that at least.
Just to throw something in there, statistically, the chances of a child with a single parent being sexually abused is way higher.
Well, I wasn't gonna hit that necessarily, but what I was gonna say with the single parent, my criticism would extend to single parents as well. Not that I would say like being a single parent is in and of itself like devalued or not worth doing or anything like that, or you're a piece of shit because you broke up with your significant other. But what I would say is I would counsel that person like, hey, if you're going to be bringing somebody into your child's life, you have to make sure that they're worth it. They're going to be stable. They're going to contribute to the family. They're not going to abuse your child, et cetera, because of how important that task is. And then actually, I kind of want to go a little deep for a second. So this is something that I was asking Azariah as well. What do you view as like the purpose of human life? Is it to, propagate, find purpose, fulfillment, depth, all that kind of stuff? Or is it more about like finding pleasure and experience and all that kind of stuff before eventually you kick the bucket? Like what's more the emphasis is like your individual experience or kind of like a legacy or some kind of external idea?
Connor, we should stream more often because you're feeding me some great stuff for me to say stuff that I've thought about a lot. So when it comes to purpose, I think it's a really weird and interesting subject in and of itself. It's hard for me to interpret what you mean by it because when I hear somebody talk about purpose, it seems like they're talking about like someday, like, I don't know what my purpose is. A lot of people say that, and it seems like they're waiting to trip over a rock in their yard and they turn around and there's this glowing magical rock and they pick it up. Like, I found my purpose. I know what to do with my life now. But I don't think it's like that. I think that for each person, we're kind of figuring something out. And then one day you'll sort of have like an inspiration or a revelation. You'll understand something matters a lot to you and you'll want to pursue that. And I think our purpose in life can change. I don't think it's this static thing that applies to every single human being. I think for each of us, we kind of have to like carve our own path. You have part of being a person means figuring out what life is going to mean to you and pursuing that and finding out if that is the thing that's going to fulfill you. And if it's not, then you have to shift and move on to something else. I really don't like these rigid ideas of what you ought to do with your life, what some people's purpose is, because I think that only really serves to put up the blinders and hinder us and set us down a path that ultimately might just be us wasting our life and ending up with a ton of regrets.
Yeah, so there's parts that I align with you, and there's parts that I don't. So one of the things that I find, and
I can answer for me personally.
Well, yeah, and I'm not gonna. Well, actually, I think you answered me fine. I want to kind of project my own view back onto you. So, I agree with you that not every person is going to have the same amount of purpose. But what I think we do a lot in the United States and in the Western world in general is we focus on like happiness and pleasure as kind of like the drivers of our motivations throughout the day, whereas like contentment, fulfillment, and higher meaning is oftentimes not the point of consideration. And so what I think, or at least what I try to do anyways, is I did watch Jordan Peterson from 2016 to 2018. I think the dude still needs to eat a vegetable and kind of chill out a little bit. But I do think that he is right in that we are in a naturally chaotic world, something that falls apart in and of itself. It's naturally entropic, and human beings, in order to survive and thrive, have to kind of put things back into order over time in order to feel fulfillment. And this kind of aligns with maybe our like primordial motivations of when we were like cavemen or medieval peasants or whatever. Like you had to organize the cave, you had to gather berries, you had to organize the hunt, you had to do this, that, the other. Or when you're a medieval peasant, you have to go out into the fields, you have to cut up the wheat, you have to harvest everything in a timely manner in order to make sure people have food, you have to, defend your keep and all that kind of stuff. And that sense of organization was like necessary for survival, and that sense of making the world a little bit better was required. And so when I see people who, not you specifically, but when I see people who are kind of caring more about their sexual appetites or experiences or their social experiences and all that kind of shit, to me that's almost like it's like a luxury. It's like the luxury of the technology of the modern era. I don't see it as like a good moral guiding light.
Okay. So you brought up technology before too. So there's a couple things that I want to sort of bring back to today. I'll start off by saying one of my, like, I guess a quote that I've always lived by ever since I heard it from the great American philosopher and founder of the Church of Satan, Anton LaVey. The rules are written by the dead. Make your own rules. I don't value tradition for the sake of tradition. I have to look at it and go, a lot of people are doing this. Does it serve me? Does it serve to make things better? And if not, if it doesn't apply to me, I'm trying to force myself into a box that I don't fit. And I think that hurts everybody. So early humans had to do a lot of things that make no sense whatsoever anymore. So like, for instance, I understand where homophobia comes from.
I just want to say that I disagree with this, but I want you to continue. Yeah.
Okay. At one point there was 40 people that were capable of reproducing in humanity. I don't know where I heard this from, but as a scientific guy, I was engrossed in the conversation. I just forgot who it was. But there was about 40 people that were capable of reproducing. Now, if you were gay back then, it might be that we're going to fucking kill you, because if you do that and it looks like you're having fun and we lose 3 or 4 more people to being gay, we might not be able to make it 4 more winters. We might die out as a species. I get that. I don't think that's a good reason why we would say you can't be gay anymore. Like you said, we do have technology. A lot of the things from the past that made it really hard to be a human just aren't really relevant anymore. We have cars. We have things like grocery stores. Hell, we even have DoorDash. You don't even have to leave your house if you don't want to anymore. However, I think it's good to have an appreciation for how we got here, but I don't think that means we have to ritualistically uphold the behaviors of the past that got us here. Part of the point of making it so far is to not have to endure the hardships of the past, right?
Yes, but I feel like you're throwing out more of the baby with the bathwater than I ever would. So as an example, just using hypotheses for evolutionary psychology, I think yours is interesting, or that scientist idea is interesting. I also think that promiscuity, I think monogamy probably naturally evolved out of the consequences of promiscuity. What I mean by that is that they didn't have condoms back in the day. And and you look at the pagans, and they love to fuck. Like if you knew something about the Greeks and the Romans, it's that they told stories about fucking animals. They told stories about gay sex. They told stories about lesbian sex. They told stories about bisexual sex. They told stories about orgies. They told stories about all sorts of wild shit.
What a time to be alive.
Right. It was also a horrible time to have gonorrhea or a hepatitis or AIDS if it existed back then, or any number of diseases that are associated with generous sexual activity. So as a result, what I would say is that the monogamoids, as boring as they might be, they saw a bunch of fucking Greeks and Romans having gay, orgiastic, bisexual, lesbian sex, or homosexual sex, and they said, wow, all the people who had a whole bunch of homosexual sex, their dicks fucking inflamed, had white pussy discharge, and Frank recovered from his white puffy discharge dick, but Steve, he fucking died. He died because his dick rotted off of his body. That must mean that God doesn't want me to stick my dick in every single thing that moves, and I should have sex with one person, because when I have sex with Sheila, I might get like a puffy dick every now and then, but if I go wash my balls, then I'll actually be okay, and I won't die like fucking Steve did. And so what I think is that monogamy, as much as it is a social construction that might go against our animalistic instincts, it's a social technological evolution to prevent death and disease. And I don't think that by just slapping a rubber on your cock does that solve all of the other consequences. For instance, like I know that you and your wife navigated your relationships perfectly, but I think you'll admit, I'll try to wrap this up just because I know I've been ranting for a while, but I think you'll admit that having sex with multiple people can cause jealousy. I think that pregnancies with multiple people can cause logistical complications. I think you'll admit that, trying to handle all these fucking people is tough. So yeah, all those complications don't go away with technology.
Sure. Okay, so I'm gonna go over these things one at a time. So as far as STDs, STIs go, in the data packet, like that I sent you, it turns out that people in polyamorous relationships have an equal or higher rate of using protective measures and an equal or lower rate of sexually transmitted disease transference. Also, they have an equal or higher rate of fidelity within the confines of their relationship, meaning there's less cheating, there's less people going out and having sex that it's outside of the agreement made amongst all the participants. So if we're gonna talk about like STDs and all that, let me put it this way. The number of times that I have had a conversation with somebody who is polyamorous about getting regular checkups, like seeing the doctor or use of protection, having these kinds of conversations, so much more than a monogamous person. It's kind of crazy to me, to be perfectly honest. So I think that from my own personal experience, and the data would back up saying that this isn't really an increased issue. I think part of being polyamorous is having really good communication skills. And in that, the data that I sent you too said that people report having a greater communication. They feel that their communication with their partners are higher than monogamous people on average. It could be equal or greater, but I'm pretty sure that was one of those words. But either way, we're saying just as good, if not better. And so I don't think that this is going to be a huge factor. And then when it comes to jealousy, equal or less jealousy than monogamous people, with the exception of people over 55. So if you're 55, you're going to have to be a pretty tough motherfucker if you want to engage in polyamory. I guess something about getting that old makes it a little bit scarier. I don't know. Maybe you're thinking like, well, what if she dies while she's out? I have no idea what this does, but this seems to be the only like hitch in that. When it comes to jealousy, though, I will admit, and I've even talked to a therapist about this, it does seem like I have an unusually high threshold for jealousy. And I do have to deal with other people's jealousy sometimes. But one of the things that I've learned really well in polyamory, and that I think sticks pretty well, is that when I feel jealous, that's my issue. It is not somebody else's issue to fix for me. And when I see people at large who are monogamous talk about their jealousy, it is a justification for absolutely horrendous acts. And people cheer them on for it. If a woman finds out her boyfriend cheated on her and she throws a brick through his window and slashes his tires, go girl, all the way. That kind of shit terrifies me. That freaks me the fuck out. And I've never seen anything that was better at helping people temper their jealousy than having the kind of relationship structure that I'm in. And part of that reason is there's a thing called compersion. It's when you see somebody, it's usually an act that you would generally be jealous of. So like if I see my wife being really intimately close with somebody, or if I found out she had sex with somebody and she's like very fulfilled and it wasn't me, the ability to feel happy for her has very, very seriously helped me combat any kinds of feelings I have of jealousy that can flare up. And when I do feel jealous, I can say, hey, this makes me feel jealous. I just want to talk about it. I understand that you didn't do anything wrong, but I need to work this out. And I think that's a really good way to do it. I think that if you're not able to, there's certain things that you just can't handle, you can't do. Polyamory is not for you. I'm not saying it's for everyone, but the thing that I really want is for society to not gatekeep people out of being able to accept it as an idea before they solidify monogamy as the only thing that can be possible. That's the kind of thing that really freaks me out. Also, when I first engaged with you on this, I know you're being hyperbolic, but you're like, you posted some Reddit thing that I'm not going to hold you to, but you said, proof that polyamory doesn't work. But the thing that I take from that I really want to ask you is, what does it working mean? What is a relationship working? How would you define it? What's a good relationship to you?
Yeah, I'll address all of that. Give me a second. Stats.
You taking notes
from Reddit? Yeah, 92%. Yeah, we're both verbose people, but I like the flow of your ideas. I think they all go into each other pretty well. So I would like to address them chronologically as well.
Back at you.
Sure. So, all right. So, sexual health of polyamorous people versus monogamous people, sexual protection, and sexual disease. So, in preparation for our conversation or debate, I'm sure I almost read the identical study, which was a comparison of monogamous people and polyamorous people, and it was self-reporting, and 25% of the monogamous people basically admitted that they cheated on their partner, and the majority of them had not disclosed that to their partner, and they participated in more risky behavior than the polyamorous couple. So what they did is they kind of like statistically compared the negative outcomes of the polyamorous couples with the body of the monogamous couples. And then they kind of said, like, on the whole, like, turns out that cheating couples and, monogamous couples, when you take them as a coherent whole, they're just as fucked up as just as fucked up or even less, or even more fucked up than the polyamorous couples, because the polyamorous couples might have fucked multiple people and they might have had some concerns about STDs and STIs and jealousy and all that kind of stuff, but they actually communicated about it, whereas the monogamous cheaters didn't communicate about it at all. So there was almost
Can I interject?
Sure,
the
please.
First time?
Please.
Do you think that I strongly believe that monogamy leads to riskier sexual behavior, though? I think that the reason why we see that is because if you're monogamous, you only have one avenue, which is to be secretive, subversive. You have to be sneaky, and you have to find basically whoever will take it. You can't be openly looking for these things. So it's going to lead to riskier behaviors inherently if you're not able to get the kind of sex you're looking for at home. Whereas polyamory, you don't have to do that.
Sure. But my counterpoint to that would be the fact that, yeah, you're right. And honestly, with the self-reporting survey or whatever, I would say that there are probably even another 5% or maybe even 10% of people who probably cheated and didn't even admit it on the self-report because they didn't want that shame, right? So let's say that we bump it up from 25% to 35%. I would agree with your conception, including monogamous people as a whole. I don't agree with it with the people who actually stay true to their monogamous principles. Because obviously, if you don't fuck anybody else, then that's not a concern, right? So,
True. Yeah.
So
100%.
I am comparing the polyamorous reality versus the monogamous ideal, but there's still 65% of people who do participate in the monogamous ideal.
Sure.
Yeah.
But they
It
cheat
sounds
more often.
it sounds like both of you are defending your own ideal and attacking the reality of the other. But you're not
True.
both engaging on reality and you're not both engaging on ideal.
Oh, I was
Well,
appealing to the data here.
Yeah, Smith, I agree with you. But if anybody was to ask me, because we talk about like legalism, and we also talk about like cultural pressure and moral prescription. If there was ever a monogamous person who ever walked up to me and they were like, "Hey, I'm kind of horny. My wife hasn't fucked me in 3 weeks. I'm thinking about cheating, and I'm thinking about like I don't really want to cheat, but I'm gonna go to the bar with my work friend and do a bunch of shots, and she's hot, and if it happens, it happens." My advice is gonna be, "You're a stupid fuck. Don't do that shit, you fucking idiot." That's going to be in my advice. And then also, if somebody walks up to me and they're like,
same too.
Yeah, and my advice to
your agreements.
Yeah, and my advice to a polyamorous person would be like, "Hey, you can do it. I just think it's going to be fucking rough," right? So, but you had 8 other points, so I want to address the other one.
Yeah, go ahead.
So jealousy over 55. It's interesting you brought that up, and I think I could just kind of posit my own theory that monogamy is not just beneficial when you're raising kids. It's also beneficial when you're committing to your other partner in sickness and in health until death do us part. Now, a lot of people don't live up to those vows, and I would morally indict those people as well. But having a stable partner who will stay with you on the tail end of life when you start fitting into a diaper and you don't smell as good and your teeth are rotting out of your face and you have random blood clotting issues and all that kind of shit, all that's important. And if you focus on the pleasures of life versus the commitments and duties of life, then I think there's going to be like a correlative behavior set where basically if somebody prioritizes pleasure over duty, they're not going to be there for you when your body starts falling apart. And it's not just about like life is lived at all corners of life. You don't just turn 55 and then fucking die. You still have to ride this bitch out until the fucking bitter end unless you want to fucking kill yourself. So I would say that this is not a small thing that jealousy increases again after 55. It's probably because of people's fear of abandonment during their most vulnerable time.
I think that metric came from people that it doesn't seem like, I have no reason to believe that they're pulling people that have been polyamorous their whole life, and now that they're 55, they're getting pulled though. So
right.
It's kind of hard to say. I assume that it's people that are like within the first few years of it.
Yeah. And then hold on, somebody said that they like the song Point Counterpoint from Streetlight Manifesto, and that I love ska, number 1. That's the style of music. Number 2, that's one of my favorite songs. So thank you, Bum Number 1, for pointing that out. All right.
You love ska?
Fuck yeah.
That just feels like such a soft genre of music, and you look so tough. It caught me off guard. I'm sorry.
No, I love there's this Smith, I heard you, but I'll let you in a second. There's a band called the Supervillains that are out of Central Florida, and they're phenomenal. They're hardcore. They talk about Jägermeister and marijuana and having sex and all sorts of cool shit. I fucking love that band. Anyways, sorry, Smith.
Okay, so Drazi, Connor has made it clear that it's obvious what the ideal is for monogamy, and I think in this conversation you haven't established what the ideal is for polyamory. So like I think that is the most important thing.
Sure,
to
so like
defining
what it is, then is that
what is the ideal at? Like not what it is. He's saying that there is like that basically what he just said was that there is no ideal. You'll just tell them to do whatever and figure it out. So like what do you
Sure, the ideal of polyamory is simply that I don't want to you should not limit the kinds of connections that you can have with other people. Whereas monogamy is you should limit romantic and sexual feelings to one person. Polyamory says there's no reason to do that. So that's essentially all that it is. Monogamy is like a strict agreement. Polyamory is anything from no agreement at all to a less strict than monogamy agreement. It's everything in between.
Yeah, and what I would say, even though I still have another half dozen points that I want to get to, I think there's, from my perspective, I can list half a dozen to a dozen reasons not to do it.
Well, after you get through your points, I'd love to combat each and every one of them.
Okay, sounds good. So, Smith, am I good to continue?
Yeah.
Okay. So, jealousy is your issue. Jealousy is a justification for horrendous acts like acts of violence and revenge. So, I would posit further using an evolutionary psychology mindset. Not that I'm an evolutionary psychologist or I've even fucking read a textbook on it. But what I would say is the reason why screaming ass fucking women will slash the tires and damage the cars of their jilted lovers, the reasons why men will sometimes batter and abuse the both their partner but also the other person who's involved in the relationship, is because they, on an animal instinctive level, recognize that, one, they've been betrayed, which I understand that you eliminated the betrayal, but two, if we're talking about genetic, if we're talking about life, if we're talking about taking care of offspring, that if that had occurred within their relationship dynamic where they were raising offspring, then they effectively would have been tricked into committing themselves to a partner who would have wasted their time, energy, and resources. And I understand that you're saying that like we're technologically evolved past that. We're obviously not biologically evolved past that, nor do I think we should be. That's another thing. I don't think we should evolve past that.
Can you clarify for me? Are you talking about, so essentially somebody gets knocked up by somebody else, person A tells person B that it's their kid, and or even thinks that it's person B's kid, and then they find out later on that it was person A's kid the entire time?
I can't think of a worse. I can't think of a worse betrayal than that. Yeah, even if two single people are dating and they fuck each other, but they find out that the other person is fucking somebody else, then that pregnancy and betrayal hasn't occurred, but it tells them that if they continued that relationship, then that could occur.
We criticize the deception here, though. Polyamory is explicitly not deceiving people about what's going on, though.
Sure.
That's what makes it different than cheating.
Sure. And and I think in that way it's less morally criticizable in that way because at least it's honest. However, there is like a biological purpose that I'll get to. Okay, so you said that one of the things that helped you get over your jealousy, I could be putting words in your mouth, but instead of getting jealous about your partner having a positive sexual experience, you tried and successfully became happy on their behalf. What I would say, yeah. So
it's an emotion.
Compersion, COMPERSION.
COMPERSION. I think so. Yeah.
Okay, so the reason why I wouldn't ever adopt that value set is because I don't want to be happy for someone who's having like a gratifying, pleasurable experiences that potentially fucks me over in my goals. Now, my goals are different than yours. You already have your child. You already have your employment. You already have your partner. You already have your house. You already have everything that you need. So you're not as concerned with these things. And apparently you're not particularly concerned about being abandoned after the age of 55, which is good. I hope that you and your partner stay together forever. However, what I would say is that a lot of people feel that anxiety, and that's what their jealousy is telling them. Their jealousy is telling them they had a satisfying sexual and intimate experience with another human being. They might abandon me. That is where the anger and jealousy comes from. So what I'm hoping, I'm not putting this on you. I'm not putting the evil eye. If anything, I'm wishing you and your partner incredibly well. But what I'm hoping is that your acceptance and love and happiness of your partner having a gratifying and intimate sexual experience with another human being isn't betrayed, where in your more vulnerable years, you become like individually abandoned. And then you have to be taken care of by the fucking state or some like fucking psych ward or hospital or some shit.
Sure.
Okay. And then... Sorry, if you have a rebuttal, go ahead. I got 2 more points.
Nope. I was simply going to ask, like, did you have more that you wanted to cover? I'm taking notes as you go.
Yeah. So I do have 2 more. Basically, for me, my priority, I'm participating in the continuance of being. And what I mean by that is that millions of generations of living creatures, human and non-human, came together in a series of actions and counteractions and death and betrayal and sex and all that kind of stuff in order to create me. And I view this as a gift. I think life is incredible and interesting and weird and fucked up. And I want to give that gift to other people, and I want them to continue that cycle of being. So my desire, which I think is like a fundamentally biologically rooted desire, is to create healthy, happy, emotionally stable, durable, tough, intelligent human beings. And so I found somebody who had the genetic and emotional quality that I wanted in my offspring, and we smashed our junk together and we created 2 beautiful kids. And we're debating about having a 3rd kid because, you know, sometimes crazy shit happens, right?
So when you put it as beautifully as smashing our junk together, I don't know. Maybe I have to agree. No, sorry.
Like 2 birds rubbing their cloacas. It's, you know, it's beautiful. So anyways, the point being that like this is a game that I'm playing, and it's a biological game that most living beings participate in. And so for me, I don't look at the games that my ancestors played, like religion and culture and monogamy and all that kind of stuff, and say, what a bunch of stupid fucks. We got condoms, we got HBO, we got Skinamax, we got, you know, fast food delivery, we got all this shit. Fuck those, you know, stupid ass ancestors. They didn't know what the fuck they were talking about. I say, why did they play the games that they played? And when I ask that, I see the dangers that they faced, and I'm looking for the dangers that my children will face. Last point, and then I'll shut up.
Real quick, while you
Sure.
do, I'm just going to get a glass of water. My water's all empty. I'm listening. Headsets on. Go ahead.
So the last one is I screenshot a Reddit post or something like that. It was somebody saying that they looked at the stats on open relationships and they saw like a 92% failure rate amongst married people who had open marriages. And I use that as a thing to say, oh, wow, we're all so fucking surprised that like open relationships don't work. I might have said polyamorous or polygamist or whatever, but, you know, basically, I think my criticism is more based off of the picture. I think it's more properly directed towards open relationships. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think that this was contemporaneous to Destiny and Melina breaking up, and I wasn't really trying to take a jab at them specifically, but I think that we all kind of saw when you're as open sexually as they were, and it seems like they had some challenges, that it just seemed like catastrophe was inevitable because of the amount of variables that you're interjecting into the situation. So that was kind of I guess my criticism was more of open and promiscuous relationships. I just don't think that they have the recipe to last.
Sure. I just want to make a point that when I talk about, I'm just going to refer to the qualities that I seen in Destiny's relationship. I don't want to comment directly on it. Because it's it's weird to me. So let's see here. You mentioned that having somebody who's always going to be there and all that. I agree. I think that's great. So I think that other people can participate in what's called like relationship anarchy, where there's no hierarchy at all, anything like that. I try to keep the hierarchy as limiting as little as possible whenever I have a relationship that's not just my wife and I, but there's going to be some things that are just unavoidable. Like if I'm dating somebody new, of course I trust you less than I trust my wife. I've known her for fucking forever. I haven't known you that long, that kind of thing. So the best way I try to describe this to other people who aren't polyamorous is that I don't have a one and only, but I have one who's always. My wife is always going to be there. I have no doubt in my mind that we can go through hell and back, and she's still going to have my back. A good example, Mr. Girl recently tweeted a thing where he asked Shaylin if she would still love him, be with him if he was
God damn it. Yeah,
a pedophile or gay. And my wife was listening to it and she turned to me and said, I would stay with you if you were a gay pedophile. And I was like,
Jesus, she loves you.
That's I got her on lock, brother.
Would you love me if I was a worm? Like, Jesus Christ. Yeah, all right, that's intense.
Yeah, and I think that I think that a lot of people will struggle with polyamorous relationships if they've never had like a truly deep, meaningful, loving relationship where they had a significant amount of trust in another person. I think that's something that's gonna really take you a long way into dealing with insecurities that you're going to have about yourself that are certainly going to come up really quickly if you haven't dealt with them already, if you're entering into a polyamorous relationship. Let's see here. We covered that one already. But then you also talked about how there might be a bigger concern as you get older if you're polyamorous than if you're monogamous, that you might end up alone. I can say this: when I'm on my deathbed, I do not want to think. I don't want to have the thought pass through my mind that the only reason that she's still here with me is because she said she like made an agreement with me that she'd still be here and that she missed out on a life that she wanted to benefit me. I'm going to die miserable if that's what I think. I don't want that. I want somebody at the end of my life holding my hand while I die because I gave them enough for them to when I'm slipping away from life to think I'm glad that I was here to see him go. I'm glad that I was here in his last moments. I want to earn that. I want to know that that there was nothing other than the connection that we had that brought this moment to what it is. You know, if I don't just like kill over a fucking heart attack because I'm a fat fuck. Even though I'm fucking vegan, I can't lose the weight. Whatever. Thanks a lot, body. Monogamy leads to risky sexual behavior. So yeah, I wanted to kind of bring that point up again. So I seem like the implication is that just because there's more sex going on, and by the way, polyamory is not about sex. Obviously, relationships tend to have sex, but for me personally, so like my wife and I are pretty we're on different ends of this. My wife, if we tend to see we tend to date together, not always, and what's called like a triad or a throuple, but not always. And if for her, if like the sex isn't very good, she's like, I don't like this as much, but like having a really good relationship can like help even that out. For me, the sex can be phenomenal, but if like I don't have a close emotional connection, I would need like insane sex to balance that out because like if we're not getting along, it doesn't really matter how hard I come. Like I don't want to hang out with you. Like maybe we could just fuck or something. I don't really want to. I don't want to be around somebody that makes me uncomfortable or unhappy. So like but if you're monogamous, like I said, there's you're trapped then. One of the things that's really good about being polyamorous is that so like the dynamic between my wife and I is that I'm a much more dominant person than she is. So when she needs somebody to be there to take care of her and all that, I'm really good at providing that. Which means that sometimes when I really need somebody to be there, she can, but she's not as good at it as I am. But that means I can also find somebody who can be much more caregiving and nurturing to me when I need it instead of just having like tough it out. Because like I know you don't have to tell me a lot about you for me to know that like you probably aren't the kind of person that wants to go to a homie to be super open and vulnerable about something that you haven't talked to them about, right? You would prefer it to be like your wife?
Actually, weirdly enough, there's a, sorry to poke a hole in it, but there's a fraternity amongst like former law enforcement officers, first responders, military people. And so there's a lot, you're right that there's a lot of things that I'm like very intimate with my wife about and nobody else. But there is a unspoken fraternity that I have that I am able to speak to about more fucked up shit.
Sure. So you understand this idea though, at least, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, sure. So I think this is really good. And because I have that, I'm not saying that people can't cope without that, but I think for people that do have this option, because they're not restricted by like the structure of monogamy, it's really healthy to be able to have that. And even if I have a platonic friend who's a woman who's just going to be a lot more caring and nurturing, because like I can't be that vulnerable with my guy friends because guys seem to be a lot more competitive. And there's just this sort of like aggressive kind of behavior that I appreciate with my guy friends, but it makes it harder for me to be vulnerable. So if I have a platonic
they'll still call you a fucking pussy if you say the wrong thing.
Yes,
yeah, for sure.
So even if I have a platonic woman friend, I don't then have to worry about getting grilled about what I was doing with her. Hey, how come when I came over the other day and Jenny was over, you were like on the couch and she was just like holding you? I wouldn't have to answer for that. I mean, there might just be like a curiosity, like, are you okay? Or is there something, like, are you guys seeing each other? No, I was just having a tough time. And she was doing a really good job at like helping me through that. And that was part of that. Okay. Whereas I think if most people's wives came home and they seen that, they're like, what the fuck? But like, I don't actually want an explanation. I just want to yell at you now. This would be the kind of response that you're going to get. And I think that's a really big positive. You made an appeal to like this, everything that came before you brought you to being now. Sure. Like I said earlier, I think it's great to acknowledge these things. And I think there's a lot that can be applied to today by understanding what had to be gone through to get to where we are now. But at the same time, we're still here now. You can take that value and you can apply it to what is going on around you, but it doesn't mean that you should mimic it. I didn't really see anything built into your argument about that implies that we should be applying that to a standard that no longer requires certain practices. So I'm a little lost on that. Another thing that you said that I thought was really bizarre. He says, I don't want to be happy by X thing. Like, I don't want to be happy by my partner having this experience with somebody else. I'm confused as to why you would decide ahead of something, like why you would want to be happy by a certain action happening. For me, I usually find out how I'm going to feel about something when I feel about it. I think that I feel like you're only going to cause problems for yourself if you preemptively limit the kinds of emotional response you can have to an event. It seems like you're protecting yourself from something that you think might happen if you don't protect yourself from it. So it seems like you're moving further away from having an honest relationship with yourself in that aspect. Maybe I'm misunderstanding what you're saying. I'm not entirely sure. And then on the open relationship failing and all that, the thing that I thought was really interesting about that, which I didn't get your answer about, what do you think a relationship working is that there's this failure rate. Now, every single relationship that a monogamous person has ends, except for one. Maybe. That's a maybe. If you're monogamous, you might have a single relationship that never ends until you die. Even then, you're about 50-50 there, based on our divorce rates. For polyamorous relationships, we don't really have like super good numbers on that, but I'd say that even if there's like a bit of a sway there, at least if I go through a breakup and it's really hard for me, there's a chance that I have another partner there to take care of me, which means that I might be less likely to get drunk and show up somewhere I shouldn't be with a gun or something like that people like to do when they're heartbroken. It means that I'm not necessarily going to be alone when I'm dealing with, for what some people is the hardest challenges that they'll face in their life. And I think that's pretty good. So for me, which I want to really, I'd like pat you on the back, suck your dick, however you want to fucking say it. Great job. You did not do the thing that I hate. Every single person says like, well, how can you possibly like everybody, each partner is going to be getting less from you. Like my love reserves are something that I have like a single cup that I can't refill and I can just pour it into people. I really appreciate you didn't make that argument, but because you didn't, I just wanted to say I had a thing for it. Say like, this is my favorite flavor of vape, but I also really like this flavor. It's peach berry. I still love them both. And sometimes, even though I love both of these, I like a little honeydew melon in my life too. Doesn't take away from any of them. But you didn't make that dog shit argument that you're the only one who didn't. I was so primed to have such a funny, cool moment. And you being an excellent person in this debate ruined it for me.
Well, I'm happy to ruin that moment for you. So
Yeah,
I got another.
It's the most retarded point that people make. So
yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, you must have boundless energy, because I won't put that argument onto you. I'll put that argument onto myself. I only have so many cups of energy and love that I can give to other people, but I won't presume that of you. Well,
you better not have that third fucking kid then. You're just depriving your other two kids of the love that you could be giving them.
Well, that's going to be an interesting point that we'll
Oh no.
It actually it is going to be an interesting point. So all right, so again, got a half dozen bullet points. I'll run down them real quick. So not that we have to like litigate these, but if I was consulting with somebody before they entered into like a polyamorous dynamic or whatever, I would bring up these points, just addressing, you said there's no reason not to do it. So I would bring up STDs. I know that you brought up that the cheating partners of monogamous couples are technically more dangerous than polyamorous relationships. I heard you. I understand you.
Wait,
Yep.
I brought up that it's that the STD transfers are lower or the same. In that study that you read, my study that I gave you is an amalgamation of all studies, and it cites how many studies say this thing and how many say that thing.
I'm pretty sure I read something similar, and I'm not trying to debunk anything. I'm just saying that what we're doing here, if I wanted to be in like an uncharitable debate bro douche, then I would say, well, the cheating couples who are a part of the sample of monogamous couples don't count because they're not really monogamous. But I understand that we're comparing the real world examples here, so I'm not going to be a dick about it. Okay.
Cheating is a function of monogamy too. Polyamory as well, just to a lesser degree.
So I'll be very specific just to be gross, okay? So if you're polyamorous and somebody has genital herpes and they do have a breakout, but you want to risk it, so you wrap your tool, but then your balls accidentally bounce into the herpes a little bit, then you stand a higher chance of having herpes than if you never had sex with somebody outside of your monogamous marriage. That's all I'm saying. Okay. Now, wrapping your tool reduces the chances. If you tape your balls to your taint, maybe you won't have that problem. But I'm just saying, if you don't have sex with the person who has a herpes outbreak, then you're not going to catch herpes. That's all I'm saying. All right. Then jealousy, tumultuous relationships. You talked about how you manage those things yourself. Tumultuous child rearing. You talked about how you manage that yourself. I think that other people are not as talented as you are emotionally, but we'll let everybody be fucked up, because I'm sure you can also bring up there's plenty of single parents and plenty of monogamous people who totally fuck up their relationships as well. I get it. I just think that having a polyamorous relationship is plain sex and relationships on hard mode. Okay. I've heard it described that way before. I think that that's a fair analogy. So
can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Do you think that if I was monogamous, I would be playing relationships on hard mode?
Yeah, actually, yes. So there are people who are going to need a certain style of existence in order to exist. And so like I'm all about rules that make sense, but rules by their creation almost necessitate exception. So one of the things that I get frustrated with conservatives is that they act like we can create rules, force everybody into the rule, and everything's going to be fine. And that's not true. For 85%, 95% of people, the rule might work fine, but you have to carve out the exceptions for the exceptional people. But anyways, so you brought up something that I thought was beautiful, but I also want to try to articulate marriage in its best form as well. So you said that you would hate it if the only reason why your partner was there with you on your deathbed was because she had said some flowery words and signed some contracts 60 years earlier. You didn't earn her love. She wasn't there because she wanted to be there. She wasn't there because she loved you and wanted to see you on your way out. She was just there because she felt like it was some vague duty that she had signed up for 60 years earlier. I totally understand that. But marriage itself, speaking from personal experience, is not just like signing the contract and then everything is hunky-dory. As a matter of fact, what happens is my wife and I took our wedding vows probably when we didn't fully understand them, not because the words weren't nice and we didn't mean them. It's because we hadn't lived them yet. in sickness and in health, for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, all that kind of stuff. The reason why those words are so common in the vows is because these are the experiences that are going to come for you after your beautiful wedding day. And a lot of people have a lot of really tough problems dealing with the poorer, unhealthier parts of a relationship, but it's a commitment to a higher ideal. And so the words are not written there as some kind of contract to compel you to dutiful action 60 years later after you didn't live the words. It's to give you an ideal to strive for and to try to fulfill. So I likewise, even though I took those vows, I will try to live by those words and I will fail. But if my wife is only seeing me out because she wants to do the right thing according to her vows, and she's just praying for the day I check out so she can cash her life insurance check, I will also view myself as a failure. So,
yeah. By the way, you inspired me. I got the cheap version. It's awesome.
It is. Grabbing the knots in your back while you're talking.
That's why it's so close to me. I didn't grab it and put it here because I'm talking to you. I seen you with it and said, what the fuck is that? Looked it up. It's awesome.
Oh yeah.
You helped me.
When you're sitting in a chair for prolonged periods, being able to stab the knots in your back with a hard plastic cane is fantastic. So yes. you said something that I didn't understand while you were explaining things that you didn't understand about what I said. You said a standard that no one practices. I didn't quite understand what that was in relationship to. I don't know if you remember saying that, but that threw me for a loop. Then you said, I wouldn't want to be happy for my partner finding sexual fulfillment with another person, and you wouldn't know the emotion until you experience the emotions. You're trying to predict the way that you feel. I would... I
was just trying to limit it.
Yeah.
Or protect how you feel. Yeah.
Yes. So I am okay with the protection and the paranoia because I am appealing to an Evo psych model. I think that there's certain behaviors that on average, like causation is not, or correlation is not causation, right? On average, there's certain levels of behaviors that are going to have predictable consequences and outcomes. And why did we build the institutions that we did? And so I can tell you that I am stereotypically aggressive. I'm not stereotypically aggressive in some ways. I am stereotypically aggressive in other ways. And if another man did have sex with my wife, and if my wife did do that behind my back, at minimum, we're getting divorced. And at maximum, some of that abhorrent shit that you were talking about is happening, because I feel that way. But my wife feels that way as well. It's like mutually assured destruction almost. Then, what is a relationship that's successful? That is such a good question, because I think I would view some of my previous relationships that failed in longevity as successful relationships, because they achieved the goal that we were looking out for. We were young, we were in love, we were dumb, we didn't know what we were talking about, we dated for a while, we annihilated each other emotionally in the breakup, but we both learned 10,000 things that we needed to as young adults, and then we moved on with our lives, and then there's other relationships or whatever. So I'm totally with you asking that question, but I think that genetic success for me is probably paramount. And the reason being is, like I said, I have this conception of the continuance of being that I feel like contributed to my existence, that I want to contribute to, and I want to continue long after I'm dead. So if I fail to raise healthy, happy, emotionally intelligent, strong children, then I failed in my goals.
Do you think you would say that everybody should be aspiring to raise children? If they're not, they're failing at life?
No. So what I would say is that there's people who are designed different. There are people who are here to achieve different things. You know, there's people who are infertile for whatever fucking reason. There's people who don't choose to have children. There's people who mentor kids without ever having kids themselves. There's teachers, doctors, lawyers, scientists, et cetera, et cetera. Everybody has to find their own contributory mechanism to human civilization. Now, this is the model that I want, and I encourage most people to follow it because I feel like it's very animalistic and biological. It almost feels like a part of the encoding of life. But if somebody wildly disagrees with that, I'm not going to compel them. I'm just going to argue with them.
Dude, I really thought you were gonna make me mad in this. I like I don't have any other words. Like, bless you for saying that those failed relationships, like quote in longevity, were not failures. I can't get this across to enough people that just because a relationship ends doesn't mean that it was a failure or that it was bad. This is actually a big thing that my wife and I disagree with. That woman that I mentioned earlier, she's still mad at her because like that she's not like with her still, like that it ended in the way that it ended. I thought that was a great relationship. I had a lot of really positive experiences. The negative experiences that I did have, I've learned from, and it meant something to me. And it informs how I'm going to move forward. I think that relationship is a great success in that regard. Nobody ever says to me what you said there. That's you're so likable while disagreeing with me. Fuck you, dude.
Okay, sorry, real quick addendum to that. The thing is though, I'm privileged in a certain way where I've been able to walk away not unscathed. I still have my scars like everybody else, but lucky for me, I only have a few minor physical scars that were mostly fun, and then the emotional scars or whatever were learning experiences. But there are people that I do sympathize for who have such traumatic events when you're talking about assaults or batteries or abusive situations or emotionally abusive situations or kids that they have to take care of or kids with disabilities that, you know, basically like their partner abandoned them or something like that. And those are like wildly deep scars that I would not resent somebody for resenting those things because those traumas were so deep that they didn't teach lessons. But I think it's part of the human experience to like, you have to extract the lessons from your trauma or else you're going to fall apart.
Yeah, I would also call those kinds of things as failed. I'm not saying every relationship is a success by any stretch. Some of them are just fucking garbage. You were wrong for getting into them, and I'm glad that it ended when it did so you didn't get even more fucked up by it. Absolutely. And I think this is for polyamorous and monogamous as well. But you said something really interesting when you were going over point by point, and I asked you, I said, do you think that I would be playing relationships on hard mode if I was monogamous? And you said, yeah. So
yeah, if you're wired that way, there's no sense in fighting your nature.
Yeah, and it is really, really hard. Once I've been able to fully like not put any blinders on myself for the sake of myself or anybody else and really get a look at who I am and see that if I was in a relationship with somebody long term and they didn't accept that about me, it would kill me. It would hurt me so bad to know that well, I don't have the same idea about relationship structures, therefore I'm not worth it anymore. I'd be destroyed by that.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
And so I think that you agree with that. So I guess it doesn't even seem like you're really against polyamory. You're just saying like it's not for me.
So the stronger
and by me I mean
thing,
you.
Yeah. The stronger thing for me is I wouldn't want you, Elder Drazi, to be appointed the relationship counselor of the Surgeon General relationship counselor of the United States. And you're like, hey, bro, have you ever tried polyamory? It's pretty based, actually. This is what me and my wife and girlfriend did. It was awesome. Everybody should try it. I'm not saying that you would do that. Right. I'm not saying that you would do that, but I'm just saying that like that I would push back against that cultural development. And I do think that while the genetic arguments for me about like, you know, coming from a line of creation and trying to contribute to that line of creation and propagate it and complexify it and make sure it survives time for as long as possible, while potentially futile, it is the higher purpose that I am pursuing. And I also think that if you look at life from something as simple as like a single-celled organism all the way to the most complex and intelligent human being on the planet, like they're all following that same basic programming. So for me, it's not like I want to understand as much as possible, but for me, there are things that are outside of me that are much larger and much more powerful than I. And I actually find purpose and fulfillment when I kind of pursue those things. I'll try to make this brief, but like I was kind of a hedonist when I was 17 to 25, maybe. Like I pursued my own pleasure. I did whatever I wanted. I drank, I smoked, I chased girls, I did whatever I wanted to do, but I was a miserable fucking cunt. I was miserable and I was an asshole and I was bad to people around me and I caused people to be bad to me. And so it was only once I started kind of like trying to live by the parables and myths that I don't believe in, by the way. I don't believe these myths on a literal level, but I tried to live the lessons that they taught and I found my life much improved.
Sure. I think that's really interesting. When I was in my early 20s, late teens, I was a piece of shit. I manipulated a lot of people around me. I was often homeless, and I would have to like manipulate people, get a roof over my head, to get food and all that shit. And I guess I had like an awakening, I guess. And I to some degree, I overcorrected a lot. I'm scared of telling people the truth if I think that it'll influence them in a way that they wouldn't have already come to that conclusion. Because I so badly don't want to be manipulative to people. I'm overly honest. I overshare now. But part of it is because I got to take a look at how I was living and I wasn't being honest with myself. I was miserable. People around me were miserable. And it was just because I wasn't really being me. And part of understanding who I was is understanding that I don't really fit into this relationship standard. And I knew that if I continued trying to force that, I was going to make other people around me miserable. Granted, when I got with my wife, I did put that aside because I was really happy. But there was a part of me that knew that I was fucking up this part. And it was the kind of thing that, you know, when you have a passing thought, you immediately distract yourself and don't think about it. You move right along. You gave the example of me being the prime relationship advisor or whatever. The only thing that I would do is that I would increase funding for stories, movies, anything that people have access to. It's been in front of their face, to just have some form of non-traditional relationships in them. So that way people understand that it's an option. One of the things, if you talk to a lot of polyamorous people, you go, when did you start being, when did you decide that you wanted to be polyamorous? When did you figure out that's how you felt about it? And a lot of them go, well, you know, really, I always kind of felt like that, but I just didn't think it was a thing that people could do. It is the most common reason why people were not like pursuing it sooner. I hear it all the time. And the thing that really freaks me out is that there's people out there that are like that are failing in relationships that could be really good. And they're failing themselves because they're not understanding that it's okay to be like this. It's okay to have these kinds of relationships. It's okay to not think that you just need one person to fulfill all your needs and keep bashing their head in the wall and wondering like, what's wrong with me? Because I really think that if you can't, if you have a wider variety of needs and you can't get that from one person because people aren't fucking magicians, you know, then that's really what you need to be doing. That's all I want for people, is for people to understand that there is something else out there. Because even for me, I didn't know there was a word for it until I was in my late 20s.
I feel like I failed both of you as a moderator, because the one thing that could have saved us a lot of time is if we asked the question, what are we arguing? What are we arguing? Because it seems like you actually agree.
That's what I said.
I was actually gonna push back on that.
Well, the thing that I still am questioning is like, to what point do you guys disagree on? It seems like Drazi agrees that polyamory is more likely to fail. For
I didn't say that.
For most people, no.
I think it's just as likely.
Never mind. If you don't think that, then there is still disagreement.
But it depends on what your definition of failure is.
Exactly. Yeah. And so hold on. I think I can address this, and then if we're running out of momentum, I don't mind if we wrap up. But the basically what I was going to say to push back it. Well, not me. I have to split up my.
We running out of momentum.
I have to split up my love cups between multiple people. Okay. So no, what you said. So you were saying that you would want more representation in non-traditional relationships and in media and art projects and all that kind of stuff.
I just want less indoctrination.
Sure. I think that's kind of already on the way, to be honest. Maybe not in the way that you want. It's probably just more
quit fighting it.
No, I'm going to keep fighting it. So what I was going to say is like, I want more. So I would like it better if progressives and conservatives came to a consensus that like there are rules and there are exceptions and both need to exist. So if most people, or if society, or if the genetic health of the species does better with a certain model, then this is kind of going to be the way that it is most of the time. However, there is a huge variety in the way people express themselves, conceptualize existence, prioritize goals, et cetera, and some people, when they try to live like a more traditional or conservative lifestyle, it's like they're fucking drowning. Like they wake up and they feel like they're drowning for 16 hours a day. They go to bed, they wake up again, and then they feel like they're drowning. And that's just their existential experience. And for that, I wouldn't wish that on anybody, because for me, that's hell. And truth is more important than anything to me. Like truth with yourself, truth with your community, truth within our culture. I think it's the guiding light that'll save us from our own bullshit. And so if you look at yourself and you're like, I'm wired different, this kind of relationship doesn't fulfill me, this relationship does, I'm looking for somebody who can love me the way that I am, and I need to express myself this way, or else I'm going to like drown 16 hours a day. I don't want you to drown 16 hours a day. But I also don't want people to get fucked up where to me, these things are not equivalent in outcome, and you are taking risks that the monogamoids are not. So
Compromise. So like if Drazi would accept, as when he's the king, to have just like cigarettes have a warning label.
Yeah.
Polyamory comes with a warrant. Is that what you want?
Sure. Yeah. Literally. Hey, 90% of you or 80% of you would probably be healthy in a monogamous relationship. But if you want to give this a shot where you cry into a big titted woman's arms while your fucking wife is out grocery shopping, and then she fucking goes and hangs out with a dude and they fucking play Netflix and bang after playing some Super Smash Brothers, then you do you. But just bear in mind that this stuff has resulted in jealousy, homicide, STDs, broken dreams, and all that kind of shit, which, by the way, monogamy has as well. But I'm just saying, like, set the expectation
and
that
higher numbers,
the more but we're more of the population, and I don't know about more
per equal or more per capita. But that's what all the data shows.
Well, okay, so if you're again, I feel like I can pull. I said it before. It's like the cheating
there's
people.
There's a really important point.
Sure.
That didn't get to be brought up yet, because polyamory is in the state in which it is, especially in terms of representation. We don't know how much more successful, like already the numbers look pretty good for polyamory. However, when polyamorous people struggle, what we don't have is a society that's been open enough for me to be able to look back at other people who have had polyamorous relationships. There's not a lot of books on the subject, because even if you were, you're not supposed to talk about it. It's been so pushed aside as a stigma that it hasn't been socially acceptable, to where we don't have the kinds of resources that monogamous people have. We're extremely nerfed entering it because of how society has treated it. And if that had been taken away and people were able to be more open about it, I'd have a lot more resources to look to, instead of having to like kind of create my own community like I did. I wrote a polyamorous blog for a few years, and a lot of people flocked to it. I talked to a lot of people who messaged me and stuff. And it's kind of sad that has to happen that way, because monogamous people can just pick up any book and decide, I want a relationship like this. When we're more open about it and society is less restrictive on it, and people have these ideas earlier on, I think we'll see these numbers continue to increase. We'll see polyamorous relationships continue to get healthier, because having these good resources available certainly can't lead to worse outcomes, right?
Yeah. So,
and this is part of what goes along with the indoctrination.
So I'm against this, but I'm not going to be a dick about it. So that's
I don't know why you're against it.
Why am I against it? Because
it feels like you have a religious. Underneath all of it, it feels like there's this sort of like religious like belief in doing things this way to get the outcome that you want, and then projecting it out to everybody. That's how it feels to me.
Yeah, but it's not religious in it is religious in a way, and it's not religious in another way. The religious belief is that I think that behaviors, religious behaviors like you know, not eating pork or not mixing your threads or, you know, bars against homosexuality and all that kind of stuff. While I think that there are exceptions to the rules that need to exist or just do exist in spite of the laws, religious laws or whatever, I still think that religions are a vehicle of codified moral behavior and that they're advantageous to humanity. So even if you look at a prescription that you think is stupid, there's probably a reason behind it. And so it's always worth it analyzing the reason behind it. And the reason why looking at the codified behavior and then picking the most advantageous ones is important is, okay, I'm going to make it personal, but I'm not trying to be mean about it. Okay.
I'm the best person for it. I don't, even when it's personal, we're debating. This is
okay.
This is outside of everything else.
So I am following some things that are against my instinct, right? My instincts are go to the bar, drink a bunch of drinks, smoke a bunch of smoky smokes, talk to everybody there, try to be charismatic and flirtatious and whatever, and just be the center of attention. That's my default animalistic impulse, is I want to be the most important person in the room. However, what I do instead is I go to work, I come home, I take care of my wife, I take care of my kids, I'm self-sacrificial with my time, and as a result, I have gained a partner through my discipline and sacrifice. I have gained a partner who I love, who I think is capable of giving me healthy, happy, functional children, right? We have 2 beautiful children already. We're considering a third, but again, logistics, effort, you know, do you want to be with the kids and have like a really intimate relationship with the 2 kids, or do you want to have like a pile of kids that you try to just have adventures with all of them at the same time, right? It's a debate. But here's the thing. And then we compare that to your situation where you had a child with another woman. You have a stepmother. You guys are both relatively stable influences on that child, and you invite people into your relationships to come and go. Now, let's just say no abuse, right? On either end of it. No abuse on my side, no abuse on your side. They both go through school. They both get academic stuff, whatever, right? Because of the choice that I made to have multiple children, including maybe a third, if one of my children dies in war, accident, violence, suicide, whatever, any of the various difficulties of life could kill one of my children, I still have a second child and potentially a third. And I did this because I'm following the moral prescriptions of a book, right? Even if I don't believe in them literally. Whereas, God forbid, car accident, disease, whatever, and your child is gone, that means that this chain of being ends with you. Now, I'm not going to say that that's like a failure, because you could still contribute to society in different ways. But for me, that is not my goal. My goal is to be a part of the chain of being and continue to genetically contribute to the complexity of human life and life in general. So you would have failed in one of my priorities, which is, and also I think that my priority is rooted deep into the function and priority of almost all life.
I've got a viewer question from Tuna Chip that directly goes to that. Would you be interested?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, he says that you believe that life is worth giving, but you treat your own life as a duty to pass it on. So where does the buck stop? When can people simply enjoy the fruits of having been born without being tools of their genes and their lineage? You sacrifice for your kids, who will then sacrifice for their kids. Where does it end? What resolves that core contradiction where life is so special that it's worth giving, but it's also somehow obligated to be given away?
Yeah. No, that's
a good question.
No, it's beautifully asked, and I probably won't be able to answer it as beautifully. The answer is yes. So life is not just pleasure. It's not just experience. It's not just the fun sides of life. It's also sacrifice and effort and ambition and pursuit of ambition and vision and institution and violence and all these crazy fucking things. And the cool thing about it is, like, the horror, like when you experience all these things, like bear in mind, like I did law enforcement, I did the military, I did like a lot of like self-sacrificial, fucked up, violent, physical shit. All of that carried within it like its own richness of experience and beauty and horror and all that kind of stuff. So to say that like it's kind of like going to the gym almost, or eating your vegetables or some shit. It's like, well, what's the point of eating your vegetables when I can do ecstasy? And it's like, yeah, ecstasy is awesome, but you're going to feel like shit the next day. Whereas if you eat vegetables, which taste like shit, you're going to have some vitamins that your body needs desperately in order to feel good on a day-to-day basis. What's the point of drinking water? It's to stay fucking hydrated. So you do things that are unpleasant, but your life is richer because of it. So yeah, I don't see.
Have you ever done ecstasy, my friend?
No, but I have a friend who basically fried his fucking brain on it. So
I did it once on mine and my wife's 1-year wedding anniversary.
How was it?
Thought we were going to get fucked up and have the best sex ever. It was beautiful. We literally held each other naked for like 8 hours and opened up and talked to each other and had like the most crazy amount of closeness. And we were holding each other so tight that my fingers fucking hurt the next day. Downside is I couldn't get a boner for like 48 hours afterwards.
See, that's what I'm saying.
Otherwise, but like
Yeah.
that was like, fuck your vegetables. I had like a truly life-changing experience. I don't think that I certainly would not want to do that all the time.
Okay, but my answer is do both. I wasn't just always like, and maybe this will enlighten people to my character as well. I wasn't always like a fucking cop and a Marine and whatever. Like, dude, I smoked tons of pot in high school. I chased plenty of girls when I was in high school. I drank plenty of booze. I did acid. Like I did all sorts of crazy shit when I was a young man. And the truth is, I think from 15 to 25 is really like, I did a lot of wild shit that honestly kind of did fuck me over and turn me into a bad person. But I did that experientially so I would know what it was like. So I appreciate both the peaks and the troughs. So it's not one or the other. And then also like, I wouldn't be so scared of discipline or self-sacrifice because you also get beautiful things with it.
In your worldview, is your prescription of monogamy one like a rule that you think is meant to be broken? Then,
yeah. Wait. So ask your question again, but I'm like 99.9% sure that I'm going to say yes.
You want it to be a prescription, but you want people to not do it too. Like to
Yes.
actually like to break it. Like not just like it's not for everybody. You want to tell everybody it's kind of for everybody, but also you want them to.
Yes. So cultural pressure and cultural norms in a free society, if we're going to live in a free society, should exist in order to give people models and ideals to strive for. But part of the point in living in a free society is to not have to subscribe to those ideals. And I'm the kind of person who has to learn it the hard way. I didn't listen to my fucking parents. I didn't listen to my teachers. I didn't listen to my guidance counselors. I didn't listen to fucking anybody. I learned it the hard way. And you know what was true? They were all fucking right. Like they were all right. I should have eaten my vegetables. I should have drank my water. I shouldn't have dated all those floozy girls. I shouldn't have drank as much alcohol. Those guys that I hung out with were mean and cruel and dickish. I should not have smoked as many cigarettes as I smoked, okay? They were totally right. I still lived a richer life for having broken the rules, but then I learned why the rules existed in the first place.
So I think that there's a really interesting angle that maybe you haven't considered. So let's say we do unindoctrinate society as a whole a bit, and it ends up with there being more polyamorous people. And it does end up muddling up like the genetic path forward a bit. By the world you want to see, though, that means that the polyamorous people are the ones who aren't going to be so concise about what genes are getting passed forward. The better, stronger genes are going to be the ones that more align with what you believe, right?
Sorry, I was having somebody talking shit, so I would notice them in chat. So, no bear pants, eat a dick. Ask it again.
So this idea that what you're saying is like monogamy leads to a better, more clear path to genetic progression. Yeah.
I think if it's actually followed, then yeah.
Sure. So if we indoctrinate people, that means there's going to be, you're basically setting this trap by for the world that you want, and it's going to gather up these people that aren't aligned with your beliefs, and we're going to have a less clear genetic path forward, which means that more people like you are going to be able to succeed and be on that stronger, more deeply rooted progression, right? So like really we're just part of the problem working itself out then. So it should kind of be more open, so that way you don't get some of these people that are going to pass forward misaligned predispositions. Yeah.
But like, I guess I'm not seeing the contradiction.
Well, I'm saying that if we did indoctrinate people and more people end up being polyamorous, only the people that have ideas that align more with yours will have that more clear genetic progression. You're going the people that don't align with you are going to be weakened in the future for it. And so I guess it seems like you should push that then, because that's going to lead more towards the world that you want. You're sort of setting this genetic trap for us.
Yeah, actually. So I get a little bit black-pilled about this sometimes, because it really does feel like the progressives just are slowly pushing out the progress to its most logical extremes, you know? So I get, and like liberalism as a system and free societies as a system aren't really good at like clamping down on, you know, transgressive thought. If anything, it kind of encourages it in some ways. And so it kind of feels like the progressives are just going to like, it's going to be in fits and starts, but they're going to win like slow cultural battles, right? And so there's a part of me that's like, fuck it, right? Like, why fight? Let them fucking
throw gas
win.
on the fire, let it burn bigger, brighter, and quicker.
Yeah, and then all the fucking degenerate, polyamorous, hedonistic, nihilistic, Satanist people, they're not going to be around because they only had one fucking kid, and you know, your kid's going to live forever. I'm not saying this, but the other Satanists, their other kids, you know, they got a heroin addiction and got hit by a car or something like that, and then the only thing that's left is the trad religious memers who believe in propagating the chain of being. So yeah, so like there is a part of me like, the reason why I want to push back against people like you and people in general is because I think that our culture is awash in nihilism and hedonism and materialism and all that kind of stuff. And I think that people need to hear about like hope and principle and virtue and all that kind of stuff. And so if people are capable of saving themselves from the muck and mire of our degenerate, shitty society, then they will, or at least they will stand a higher chance if I talk about it and if I push back. But there is also a part of me that says fucking skill issue, and it is what it is.
You need me then. I'm your best ally then in this, because so like I used to be a libertarian and now I'm on the left side of things, because libertarians are the most retarded people in the entire world. I can't have a conversation with them that's based in reality fucking ever. It's insane. Mm-hmm. So since I can't talk about what we're going to do with our taxes, I'm going to go to the people that like to spend it. And since they're going to take the money from us anyways, I'm going to align with the people that are aligned with me on what to spend it on, more than the people who just can't have a conversation about it. You need people that disagree with you, your core values, but are also willing to be rational and reasonable. Since there are going to be people that conflict with you, you need people like me that aren't fucking insane, that don't agree with you. So that way we can end up somewhere closer to the middle that's better for both of us. If you and I both pursue what we want only, then it's, throw the gas on the fire. But otherwise, people like me that are living extremely different lives than you, but are open, that are intelligent enough to have this conversation and compassionate enough to really listen, you and I are the kind of people that need to be working together then. We need to say, hey, you know what? I will help your cause. You help mine. And let's show people that like, it doesn't have to be all or nothing, because most of the people on the left, that's their biggest issue. No. Oh, so what? Biden cut the college tuition for this long? Cut it all. Like, shut the fuck up. You got something that you wanted. Don't vote against it because it's not everything you want. Take the small slice, see if it works, see if you can get more later, and be fucking happy you got what you got and keep pushing then. Don't fight every battle as if it's life or death. I'm the kind of person that you need to communicate to the left.
No, I've been thinking for a long time now. So Twitch Politics just sharing sharing a little bit of my life. So my 95% of my channel views, maybe 99% of my channel views are Warhammer. Just Warhammer animations, whatever they come out, I chop them up. Yeah, I chop them up, I break them down, I do lore stuff, all that kind of stuff. And then Twitch Politics, by comparison, is a substantively smaller amount of views, and I'm kind of starting from scratch on that end. But for me, there's a lot of energy, there's a lot of passion, there's even a lot of money for some people in this space. And I feel like if we took like 1 to 10% of that energy and money and we actually directed it towards like, I don't know, community aid organizations or disaster relief or whatever. And if we actually built like a hybrid online IRL community in order to do that, then we could actually have some real positive real world change. And I was thinking about like, what's the bar for entry? What do you need in order to be considered like a part of somebody I can work with, basically? And I think it really is like, you wake up, you know the world's fucked up, you know that it could be better, you're willing to put a little bit of your energy towards the world being a better place. And that's really it, as far as I can tell, as like a minimum barrier to entry. So yeah, so no, I do need people like you, and I'm happy that we had an intelligent and fruitful conversation. And then what I'm hoping to do is in the next year, the financial winds might blow the way where I can go full time. And if I go full time, I'll try to dedicate myself to, you know, I don't have to ask the 50 people in my fucking chat to be polyamorous, but to at least fucking hear you out and not call you a degenerate fucking coomer piece of shit if they jump into your chat, right?
Yeah. And I think that's really the way to go about it. Which
Oh,
is
hold on, I want to point out that was an underhanded compliment, because he just said that you meet the bare minimum. He said that you basically, he said, oh, we need people that get out of bed.
Listen,
and he's like, so we need you.
Listen,
I made a stronger case than that, and he already agreed. So I felt like it
not
wasn't
only
really
that,
like that.
but if you check my body of work, there are wildly less productive conversations than the one that we just had for the past 90 minutes. Okay, there are. Well, let's just say that Elder Drazi is an infinitely more productive human being than a healthy chunk of people I've talked to.
I told my chat and stuff too. I thought you were gonna make me mad. Underneath this, I have a fucking shirt with the sleeves ripped off of it, and I was gonna fucking get into it if you made me like super pissed off. I was so ready to get heated with you because there's like 5 subjects people can approach that can really, really piss me off if they're saying some ignorant shit with like no basis for. You were so fucking reasonable, and you had like you never made any of the arguments that really, really pissed me off. And like, part of me's disappointed, but this was fucking nice. This was like a good debate. We let each other finish. There were a few interjections. Like, what the fuck?
Well, listen, I'll tell you, what I hate about the space, and parasocial love to the people in chat, but what I hate about the space is the debate that I am most known for is Lauren Southern and me versus Tale of Twin Rabbits and the Serfs. And that debate was so bad and so unproductive and so mind-numbingly fucking stupid that I talked to my editors after that, and we did not know if anybody would watch it because we thought it was unwatchable. That's how bad we thought it was. And because it was so stupid and such a fucking train wreck with like a few good memes, it ended up being like the most popular content I've ever produced in the debate sphere. And it kind of like on one level, like I'm happy that I said like, you know, Tale of Twin Rabbits, it's like your brain runs on fucking Windows 1995 or whatever. Like I'm happy I said that. That was funny. But the amount of fucking psychic damage that I took on from that fucking debate was unbearable. And if I had to do that every day, I wouldn't do this.
I get it. I get it.
But very fun.
When it comes to
and the metrics
like
are
this,
great.
I can get as bloodthirsty as somebody like I don't know. I forgot his name. There's some vegan debater that's like fucking batshit crazy whenever he debates. I can get down in the weeds as hard as anybody else if it's over a couple of subjects. This is one of them, but it went well.
Right, well
I think I try not to be a douche. Where you're at.
Yeah, I try not to be a douche.
Drazi needs someone to fucking fight That's what he needs.
Yeah, I
He
We'll
wants
find
to-
it
thought it
for
was
you.
He
going to
wants
be.
to he wants to do the rebellious act that you say that you're saying that this prescription is not that great, you should, but really he's that guy in both of these cases, in both these arguments. He wants to be that guy right now. He wants to fight somebody.
I'll
I
find
do. I
him for
want
you.
to. I want to yell at somebody who's being dumb and stupid and arrogant. Somebody who I can justify letting out my pent up anger on. I really do.
I'll find you the
I want
guy.
to debate people more.
Yeah, no,
'Cause
I'll
I think
find you
it's
the guy.
good.
Yeah,
Send him my
I
way.
I'll find you the guy. But yeah, we're hitting 11. I planned
Oh, wow.
I planned on running for 60 minutes. We ran for 120. But it was fun. So
Thank you.
I'm good. I think I made all the points that I need to make. Do you have any outro points you want to make to the chat before we kind of wrap it up?
No, this was really good. I want to say that I haven't seen any of your Warhammer stuff, but I'm always interested. I got a 3-hour lecture from a magic judge when I was in Illinois for a magic event. We were eating dinner, and he just stands up and gives me a presentation, like just a verbal presentation. Where it's the only reason I know any of it. It is pretty interesting. Not gonna lie. You'd think he had a book in front of him he was reading from. So like I know how it can be, and I got my own nerd shit that I could give a lecture on too. But I think it's pretty cool. After seeing my buddy do it, I get it, and I'm glad that you found a cool niche nerd thing to dig into, and
Yeah.
that's how I know you're not like the rest of Twitch Bowl. Nerds are good people who know how to listen at times.
Yeah, and it is. I genuinely, fundamentally feel very happy and blessed that I was able to take something that, like, I'm earnestly passionate about, that other people were earnestly passionate about, talk about it, and then somehow, through the magic of consumer capitalism and late stage capitalism, I'm able to make money off of it. So I'm very happy with it. But I'm gonna bid adieu. So just if anybody here from Smeth's audience or Elder Dradi's audience wants to find me, type in CounterPoints 40K common spelling into YouTube. You'll find my Warhammer channel. I do go live there for the debates. I'm not a particularly large live streamer, but I do still love the Twitch and YouTube political community. So I still like to dip in and fight every now and then pray for me that the financial wins that I'm praying for come my way. And maybe by January 1, 2025, I'll be full-time and I can find you and fight with you more often. Find you some more people to fight and fight you myself.
Really quick, one last thing. Somebody finally from my audience asked you a question. Said, what's one thing you changed your mind about tonight? They came from F-bombs for you.
So the closest thing that I had to a revelation or something that I found interesting and commendable about you is your desire. So I don't like your rejection of like marriage and religion and all that kind of stuff, like instantaneously and out of hand. However, I find that your noble intentions when it comes to earning the love of the people around you, instead of relying on a contract to compel them to love you, I think the world would be a sincerely better place if more people thought like that. Because a lot of people rely on the contracts and conceptions that we have around us to like just compel them to the higher level idealistic behavior, and then they're always disappointed when everybody fails in those ideals. They don't realize that it actually takes effort. And yeah, so I find that, even if it's not something new that I learned, I find that deeply admirable.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I really appreciate you agreeing to this, Smeth. Thanks for moderating. This was fun.
Did my best. You guys didn't really you guys are like very cordial and
I'd rather have a moderator and not need them than need one and not have them every time.
Thanks for sitting there, Smeth. I appreciate you.
You're welcome.
All right. Y'all have a great night. I'm going to dip out and talk to chat.
Yeah,
You
bye.
too.
All right, bye.
I'll give you this, Smeth.
All right. Azurai, I saw your question. Don't worry about it. I will hook you up with Elder Drazi. If you have any questions or concerns, go ahead and hit me with them now, just to summarize the things that I'm working on right now. So, I have been fucking with a 3D printer, and I have started the basic shapes of buildings that have clips in them that you can clip together in order to make structures. This is a 3-inch by 6-inch house. that is clipped together, and I'm going to put stones in it. I'm going to put woodwork in it. I'm going to put tiles in it for the roof, and I'm going to build a medieval style house. And I'm going to try to build an entire terrain product line that comes in 3" by 3" and 3" by 6" sections that you can clip together and build, and it's already pre-textured and pre-colored. So all you have to do is hit it with a wash and a dry brush, and then it's ready to go. Now, of course, it does involve a little bit more prep time. You do have to, like clip out little things and snap it together and all that kind of crap. But in general, I think it's a pretty good idea in order to build a product line of that. So hopefully by summer, fall, I'll have a product line for you there. I'm also talking to some designers about doing 3D printed models. We have a 30-second animation that is very short, but very funny and pretty well done from an animator that I am paying a small fortune for. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I want to do that, have it released, get some good metrics, and then maybe we can get some people who are interested in doing funny but action style animations done in the Warhammer universe. So those are all my projects right now that I can think of. Oh, also, I bought a bolter. So originally, I wanted to get a $3,000 shotgun called the Origin 12. That was outside of my price point. Probably will not have that money for years. But I was able to find a 12-gauge shotgun called a VRF 14, which is semi-automatic magazine fed. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to work with a 3D design studio who already does terrain. I'm going to get the measurements for the VRF 14, and we're going to print furniture for it in order to make it look like a bolter. So I will have so bolters are 75 caliber. I will have a 72 caliber semi-automatic shotgun that will serve the purposes of a bolter, and I'm going to make a video. The ballistics gelatin with skeletons in it is wildly expensive. It's like $1,500, so I'm not going to be doing that either. I'm either going to 3D print an orc skeleton and then cure my own ballistics gelatin around it, or I am going to buy a pig and spray paint it green. Not a live pig, a dead pig, and I will shoot the pig. Tell when you're done making money. I have a question. Ask your question. Do add counterpoints in the chat, and I will answer your question. Please tell me you broil your vegetables instead of subjecting your family to boiled flavorless muck. No, I still boil them in shit. But I'll broil some fucking vegetables. We'll see. We'll see. I don't think Eldrazi is in my Discord, but I do have his Discord profile, so I'm sure that you can add him as I. Twitch chat was fucking wilding off. They were calling each other cucks. They were calling me a cuck. They were saying Andrew Tate should be saved from prison. Why is the bottom guy here besides looking sexy? Smeth was the moderator. We just didn't need him tonight. My daddy's going to buy this stream, bud. I wouldn't talk to your future owners like that. What the fuck? Twitch chat was wilding out. But we did peak around like 45 for YouTube. We were kind of doing good, and then we peaked around like 15 to 20 for Twitch. So, 65 people. Not the highest numbers we've ever recorded, but it's also not a drama stream. It's just us hanging out, having good faith debates and conversations about polyamory, which I understand is not the sexiest topic in the world, even though it does involve sex. So I sincerely appreciate you guys hanging out with me. I really do. These aren't always one-on-one debates and conversations are not always the most metrically profitable, but I very much enjoy them. I really do. All right. What did you think you could have done better in the Smeth debate? Nothing. I mean, I talked the way that I believe things. I think I could have focused up a little bit better towards the end, but to be honest, once you start streaming 3 or 4 hours, you get a little tired. And then we ignored chat a little bit. I wonder if Tau Flaudermoss has done some bolt around looking slugs. Yeah. So that's the thing, is bolters are gyrojet missiles. We're obviously not going to have gyrojet missiles, but we will have slugs. And those slugs will fuck some shit up. Very vain. Well, you spelled vain wrong, so I don't know if you're calling me vain, but I'm excited. Hi, Axelinator34. Sorry that we're wrapping up right now. But Twitch chat, stand still. I'm going to raid you out. And then YouTube chat, if you have questions or concerns, type them in. I know it's only 12 people, but there's probably some desperate soul out there who wants to stay up late. Kainato Bots is showing off her boobs. Good for her. She's on the homepage. Nice boobs. Streamer dashboard. Let's see if we can raid. I'm sorry if I look like an idiot. Edit stream info, raid channels. There we go. There we go. Zanya. She's chilling. Let's raid Zanya. 7, 6, 5, 4. I'll check chat again. Yeah. Vanity is the max killer. I don't know what that means. So what would be the point of your terrain be? Cheap. Trying to make it cheap. Very cheap. So bye Twitch chat, love you. But the point is that like this thing probably is a 10th, maybe a 12th of a spool, and a spool is $15. So I think I can probably print a building for $3, maybe $5. Now, of course, like add in shipping and you want to make profit and there's overhead and you got to buy the machines and all that kind of shit. So I would probably charge maybe like $15 for that building or something, or $10 for that building. But I would also try to sell them in sets. So we would have like 3 to 5 buildings in a design conception all together and then sell it for like $50. So you're only paying $8 or $10 per building or something like that. But yeah. Yep. I live in PST. It's only 8 for me. The night is young. Well, God bless you, astronaut farmer. It is 11 here. Oh, and then, yeah, so just sharing with still the 25 people still in YouTube chat. On Monday, I'm going to try, because actually I'm going to share with you the deep lore. So, obviously I'm excited about the Boulder project, excited about the terrain project, excited about painting, excited about everything. I'm excited about everything. There's so many cool projects going on. I love my kids too. I love my family. Everything's going great. However, the goal is eventually to go full time. So the VA finally contacted me. It's been like 7 months, 8 months. I haven't been able to turn my neck. That's my range of motion on my neck. That's it. If you ask me to turn my neck to the right or to the left, if you physically force me to do that, I would scream because I have pinched nerves in my neck. So whenever you see me massaging myself or rubbing my neck or whatever, it's because I have blown out discs. My shoulders are fucked up, my hips are fucked up, but it's been getting better over time because I'm no longer wearing body armor or fighting people. I'm not as stressed out as I used to be. I'm trying to eat a little bit better. To be honest, I've been eating like shit recently, but it's been very tasty shit. So point being, the VA might come through and they might give me a healthy chunk of change and back pay for the past 2 years since it's taken them 2 years to complete my claim. If that happens and we get a healthy chunk of change, I'm probably going to continue to work through the next year because the company that I work for is really nice and they pay really well, and summer is their peak season. But when it drops down to slow again, so fall, winter timeframe, if I have paid off my student loans, if I have savings in the account, if my house is fixed up, and if my wife has a nice car, then I might go full time. So on Monday, from noon to 5, I'll just be doing React Andy and live streaming and kind of seeing what like a full streaming workday would be like, both for me and for you. So if Monday between noon and 5 EST, you're chilling and you want to come hang out, do that. Yeah. So Ghosty, you're going to have to give me a few months, 3 to 6 months in order to develop a product line because I want to have a whole product line. I don't just want one product. But yeah, next summer, next fall, if you're looking for cheap terrain that is already pre-colored and you just want to be able to hit it with an oil wash and then hit it with some dry brushing, I should be able to get you some really cheap and nice terrain. And maybe, since you're here now, maybe I'll send it to you for free as a prototype just for being here. What do you want to debate about next, sir? No, I don't give a fuck. You know, There's plenty of shit going on. The election, I might start debating Republicans because the Democrats want Republicans to fight each other, and I'm an anti-Trump Republican, so I might start fighting Republicans about Trump. We'll see. It is what it is. Who would you like to debate? I would like to debate everybody. I would like to go on Fresh and Fit. I would like to go on the Whatever podcast. I would like to debate Sneeko. I would like to debate Andrew Tate. I would like to debate Destiny. I would like to debate Vosh. I would like to debate Ben Shapiro. Just name a fucking character in the Twitch, YouTube online poll thing, and I would happily fucking debate him. So yeah. Have you tried chiropractors that might help, or professional massages? Yeah, so there's something called cranial sacral massage therapy, where they don't massage, they don't touch the muscle. What they do is they find the knots that are fucked up and they put slight pressure on them, and they put pressure on the two knots until your muscles release between the two trigger points, and it's been massively beneficial. It has not helped. It has not helped with my. It has helped with my pain, and it's helped with my posture. It has not helped with my mobility. So, you love Trump? Sorry, Pablo Concepcion. Sorry if I make you mad with my future debates, but I wish you well. Fresh and Fit are incredibly toxic. Yeah, I know. I just want the exposure, and I want to talk to idiots. So yeah, yeah. And I don't like red pill content. I like political content more, but let's face it, political content at this point is just drama. So yeah, some human. Not going to happen though. You say that, but you know, I'm not the biggest guy out there, but you know, I'm boys with Lauren, and Desi and I are on friendly terms, and Brianna Wu and I are boys, and you know, there's some, I think I punch above my weight class. Back when the hippy dippy was around, I like to say that I punched above my weight class. So yeah, I just want the cloud. Okay, interesting. All right, well, I am going to go do something else. I'm going to go be a fucking normie. I appreciate you. I will see you on Monday, and I parasocially love you. As a Republican, there hasn't been any good politicians in a long time, even there is room for debate. Yeah, we need a new Teddy Roosevelt. I totally agree. Republican Party needs a new Teddy Roosevelt. Any way to integrate Warhammer in politics? Yes, but I don't think it would be popular. So, yeah. Vivek is sounding pretty good? Nah. He doesn't have enough clout. He's not going to win the... He's not going to be the one who faces Trump in the primary. I'm not the biggest asshole idiot, but I'm not the biggest asshole idiot out there, but I'm right. Okay. GG. Thank you. My dad went to the chiropractor, and a few of my buddies, they said it worked out, but I don't know. Yeah, we'll see. But anyways, parasocial love to you and yours. Have a fantastic night. Bye for now.